big welcome to our streaming audience. Thank you so much for joining us at the annual members meeting. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. I'm going to ask everyone who is in the room to please take their seats and get ready because we'll be going live on TV and starting the annual members meeting officially in just a few moments. So thank you. Please take your seats and get comfortable. We'll get started in just a few moments. Just a quick update. We are waiting for the arrival of the minister and we'll get started as soon as he gets here, but he's already en route and will be with us in just a few moments. Thank you. building, please take your seats. We'll start in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to recognize the presence and arrival of our chief guest, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the Honorable Mateya Kasaija. I'll ask us to remain standing for the national anthems as we get started now. You may take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to you wherever you are joining us from, and welcome to the 9th annual members meeting of the National Social Security Fund. My name is Ben Mwine, and I am member number 7917900400246. I became a member of the fund in 2001 in June, when my first contribution was 43,000 Uganda shillings. Ever since then, my contributions have grown quite substantially, thanks a lot in part to the work of the fund and what it's been doing since then. This morning, we'll get to hear from the Managing Director of the National Social Security Fund to tell us a little bit about the performance of the fund over the last 1 year. We are also delighted to host at this members meeting our new board chair, Mr. Peter Kimboa, who will be coming to give us some strategic direction of where the fund is heading over the next few years. And then, of course, we've got the big one that we're waiting for. How much money has the fund made for us in the last 1 year? The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is here to give us that, hopefully, very juicy figure. But as we get started, we'd like to start by getting an overview of the fund and an opinion from someone who I am told has been given the title of the most punctual Ugandan, our Auditor General, Mr. John F.S. Mwanga, as he comes to give his opinion on the financial performance of the fund. You're welcome.
Hello? Yes, okay. Thank you very much. I'm greatly honored to be here. I'm also a member because I also contribute to the NSSF fund. My task is actually very easy this morning, is to give you my opinion on the finances. I'd like to start off by thanking PwC, that is PricewaterhouseCoopers, who are the delegated auditors. In fact, I should be saying all protocol observed, my apology. So my report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the National Social Security Fund for the year ended 30th of June, 2021. My report is always addressed to the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament. And my opinion is as follows. I have audited the financial statements of National Social Security Fund, NSSF, which comprise the statements of net assets available for benefits as at 30th of June, 2021, and the statements of changes in net assets available for benefits, statements of changes in fund reserves, and statements of cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies as set out on pages 12 to 95. In my opinion, the financial statements present a true and fair view of the financial position of the fund at 30th of June 2021 and of its financial performance and its cash flows for the years then ended in accordance with international financial reporting standards and in the manner required by the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority and the NSSF Act. Basis of opinion. But first you must congratulate yourself. It is a clean opinion. Congratulations. Basis of opinion. I conducted my audit in accordance with the International Standards on Auditing, ISAIs. Responsibilities under these standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statement section of my report. I am independent of the fund in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995, as amended, the National Audit Act, 2008, the International Ethics Standard Board for Accountants, Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, Parts A and B, and other independence requirements applicable to performing audits of financial statements in Uganda. I have fulfilled my other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the IBISA Code and in accordance with other ethical requirements applicable to performing audits in Uganda. I believe that the audit evidence I have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide my basis of opinion. Then I move. Auditors' responsibilities for the audit of financial statements. My responsibility, as required by Article 163 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda and Sections 13 and 19 of the National Audit Act 2008, is to audit and express an opinion on these statements based on my audit. My objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes my opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with the ESIs will always detect material misstatements when it exists. Misstatements can rise from fraud or error and are considered material if individually or if in aggregate they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decision of users taken on the basis of these financial statements. As part of an audit, accordance with ISA's international statements, I exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. I also identify and assess the risk of material misstatement of a financial statement, whether due to fraud or error, and design and perform audit procedures responsive to these risks and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for my opinion. The risk of not detecting material misstatements resulting from fraud is higher than the one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omission, misrepresentation, or the override of internal control. Obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the fund's internal control. Evaluate appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates and related disclosures made by the directors. Conclude on the appropriateness of the director's use of the going concern basis of accounting, and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the fund's ability to continue as a going concern. If I conclude that a material uncertainty exists, I am required to draw attention in my auditor's report to the financial disclosures in the financial statements, if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify my opinion. My conclusions are based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of my auditor's report. However, future events or conditions may cause the fund to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the financial statements, including the disclosures, and whether the financial statements present the underlying transactions and events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. I communicate with the directors regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies, internal control, and I identify during the audit. Signed, John Mwanga, Auditor General, 24th September 2021. I thank you.
Big cue to the Auditor General, John F.S. Mwanga. If he spoke too much English for you, what he has basically said is your money is safe. So nothing to worry about. In summary, that's what it would be for Omuntu Awansi. Now, to find out how the fund has been performing, we're going to hear from the Managing Director of the National Social Security Fund, Mr. Richard Biarogaba, as he comes. I want to remind you that we have the entire NSSF management team at hand to answer any questions that you might have. And all you have to do is simply get in touch online. Our hashtag today is hashtag AMM2021. That is hashtag AMM2021. And all you simply do is ask any questions that you have, and we'll answer those later. Don't forget to tag at NSSFUG in your question, and you can tag me as well at Ben Mwine so we can keep note of all your questions. You'll also get to hear some very inspiring stories of some people who have been beneficiaries of the fund later on. And Raymond Katahamuzini will be here with me to make sure that you experience the magic of what the fund can do to change its members' lives. For now, let's find out a bit more about the performance of the fund over the last financial year from our Managing Director, Mr. Richard Biaruga.
Thank you so much, Ben, for welcoming me. I would like to observe protocol. Not good at it, but I know my boss is here. I know my boss is here. I know my boss is here. So figure out who my 3 bosses are who are here. But having said that, you're all welcome to our financial year that we just ended. And what I'll attempt to do is to give a little bit of a story around the numbers that you'll be getting in our financial statements. One of the things we're also going to do today is to not only announce the interest, or the minister will announce the interest, but we'll also be launching our financial statements, which for the very first time in our history, the financial statements are being launched at the same time as the issuance of the interest, which is a great deal. But it's also an integrated financial statement, which means that it is everything that you want to know about the fund. So that will be done a little bit later. But for now, let's start off with our performance. So as you can see, I'll talk a little bit about who we are. I'm sure you all know who we are, but we always like to remind you. We'll talk about the impact on our business from the environment. A lot of things have been happening. Of course, we all know the big elephant in the room, COVID. So we'll see how that has also affected us and the financial markets. And then we'll zero in on how we've performed. And then we will hopefully end up with a story about the value that we're earning, we're giving to you, our member. So who are we? We continue to be the national social security provider of choice. That is our vision, to be that great provider to you, and we do recognize that there is choice out there. Our purpose has been, will be, continues to be making lives better, but with a focus through savings and making savings a lifestyle. We continue to run on the values that we've integrated into our system. We call that our DNA. So the first is around the customer. We do everything for the customer. We are customer-centric, and the customer is everything we need to do. Before we do that, we've got to have integrity, and it is our currency, the most important currency, because without any integrity, we won't be able to deliver. We've got to continuously improve the things we do, and we have to do that through innovation. It's a big, big deal for us, as you'll be seeing later on. And of course, the team is so important. We can't do this without the team, and we have to do it in a cost-effective manner and efficiency. And that means that we need to reduce our costs, but also increase the value we put out to our members. Because at the end of the day, our members are the most important thing. Our value proposition is around 3 main areas. We've promised our members that we will give them a good return. We'll give them a return that's above 2-year inflation, 2 percentage points above 10-year inflation. That's our promise. We need to give our value to our members, and we need to do that in a convenient manner, so they need to be able to get service from us everywhere, anywhere, anytime, at their pleasure. And finally, products. It's an area that we've not been doing very well because of the constraints of the law, but as you'll see going forward, that will be one of the things we need to work on to make our customers feel better, have a better life. And how do we do this? We've got a strategic direction. And that strategic direction is that by the year 2025, we must make sure that our staff engagement is 95%. If we've got great guys working for us, if we've got a good team working for us, then they can innovate and come up with processes that enable us to provide our turnaround in 1 day. And once we've done that, our customers will be very happy. They'll have customer satisfaction of 95%. And then eventually, hopefully they're happy. They love what we're doing. They will give us loads of money to keep for them, and we'll hit the mark of 20 trillion. So that's really our strategic direction, and we hope to do that by the year 2025. Our business model remains the same. That business model says we collect 5% from our member salary. The employer tops up with 10%, and we put it in a big pool. We invest that in 3 asset classes. In real estate, currently we've got 7% of our assets in real estate. We've got 15% of our assets are invested in equities, in public equities, both here in Uganda and the rest of East Africa. And then the majority of our investment is in fixed income, at about 78%. Fixed income instruments continue to be things like bonds. Corporate bonds, we got some few corporate bonds, but mostly government treasury bonds, which are long running to match the liabilities of our member. We get a revenue from that. We reduce, we remove a little bit of overhead expenses. At the moment, they're about 1.06% of the assets that we manage. And then the rest of the money is given to our members, both as interest and as benefits paid out. How is the fund looking like as we speak today? At the glance, that's our membership. Our membership is about 63,000 employers. Of those, 14,000 are active, and only almost 5,000 in the voluntary space employers are also active. Our membership of running balances is about 2 million members, and of those, 1 million is active. And of those, there is a little bit of dormancy. 1.5 voluntary employers are dormant. 43,000 members are dormant in the voluntary space, and we've got about 1 million members who are currently not contributing. Our dormancy is if you've not contributed over the last 3 months, we consider that account not active. Our financials, our assets under management have hit 15.6 trillion shillings, and the member fund is 15.3 trillion shillings, which would demonstrate that there is sufficient assets to cover our member fund if we were to come to that. In terms of our operations, we paid out almost 700 billion shillings last year, 642 billion shillings, and our intention is to have a one-day member statement update. In the past, it used to take us 5 weeks, 4 weeks, but today, as soon as your employer pays in your money, your statement is updated on the very day that we receive your money. We currently have 17 branches spread around Uganda, but also spread in the city of Kampala. And there is an additional 3 outlets, which we call sub-branches, also assisting us in distribution. But one of our biggest distribution centers is our outreach centers. These tend to be Gombora and Saza headquarters, where we send our staff for given days in the month to be able to serve our customers, especially those who are not able to come into the cities and towns to access our services in our 17 and 3 sub-branches. We currently have around 630 members of staff. This number oscillates quite quickly because of the huge project we are running today to digitize our records. That number should essentially be below 600 if that project weren't in place. So, how is the economy looking like? How is the environment looking like from where we've been looking at things? So I'd like to start off with the interest rate regime. You all are aware that Bank of Uganda during the previous year spent a lot of time trying to run an expansionary monetary policy in order to stimulate economic activity. And I think that's a record. They dropped the CBR, or the central bank rate, to 6.5%. We know that that means that because of a low inflation regime, which you can also see there dropping, means that the interest rates effectively did come down on treasury bonds, as you'll see in a moment. The other things that are happening in the rest of the world, of course, COVID was a big dampener in the year 2020 and in the first part of 2021. But there is a little bit of green shoots that are coming up. They are projecting, or the World Bank is projecting, about a 6% growth in this particular year. As for sub-Saharan Africa, the projection is about 3.4%. And we know that in our own country of Uganda, the projection is around 4.3% of growth. So signs of recovery coming in there. It's always good for the economy to recover because then we can make a little bit more money for our members. Returning to the equity markets, we had a very good year on the equity side. After the slump of 2020, when the COVID initially hit us in a period of about March of 2020, equity markets really dropped quite much. However, we've seen a recovery, especially in the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which saw a growth of about, or the index of about 26%. Uganda was a marginal 1.9%, and the Tanzanian Stock Exchange increased marginally by almost 5%. We are expecting that because of this, certainly our equity markets did hold out and did actually very, very well. On the exchange rate, we continue to suffer. Suffer is very relative because if you are a Ugandan shilling, you are doing very well. You've strengthened against the other currencies. But for us as fund managers, it means that our assets that we hold in dollars and in Kenya shillings go down in value because of the appreciation of the Ugandan shilling. So the Kenyan shilling appreciated against Uganda shilling by Uganda shilling appreciated against the Kenya shilling by 6.1%. The dollar, Uganda shilling appreciated against the dollar by 4.7%. As I said, you will have noticed that in our financial statements meant that on our currency positions, we actually almost lost 303 billion shillings. What happened with our performance as a result of the environment? This is what happened. On our customer satisfaction, we continue to do very well. We told you that everything we do is around the customer. If you look at that graph, we had a dip in 2018 at about 78% customer satisfaction. However, that has come back to about 86%. And our customers are telling us, if you look on the right of the screen, you see that the customer satisfaction index is broken down into the individual parts of what the customers are telling us. And where they've ranked us lowest, you'll probably notice is around products, which comes back to the fact that we can't innovate and give our customers new products because the only product that we currently can give is the one around retirement. So one of the big news for us, big deals for us, is the enactment of the NSSF amendment law, which will enable us to provide new products to our customers and hopefully give them something that they will be happy about. On the other side, we continue to improve the customer offering through self-service and giving them an ambiguity strategy that is working. For the very first time, we're able to introduce self-registration via USSD. What does this mean? It means that if you do not have a smartphone, you can still register yourself. We've also been able to introduce our smart chatbot called Sanyu. Please, every time you call in and you hear this wonderful lady or gentleman, he's probably Sanyu because it is an artificial intelligence which can handle all our customer queries. We've automated the queue management system in all our branches. We've introduced interactive voice recognition, which basically means that you can talk to a machine and do all your business without necessarily talking to a physical person. And then our big deal is our financial literacy, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But if you look on the right of this presentation of the slide, you'll have noticed two graphs. One is the green graph, which is the walk-ins, and the blue graph, which is the e-channels. Guess what? Even before the COVID hit us in March of 2020, the trend was that a lot of people were reverting to our e-channels rather than walking into our branches, which is totally acceptable because you do not want to come in to a branch and find some grumpy person who will not treat you well. You'd rather talk to a machine that can deal with you at any time, anywhere, and with a smiling face. So we've noticed that our customers have continued to go and access service under the e-channels, and we're very grateful that our investment in e-channels has really paid off, and we're beginning to give a good service, and that's why our customers are getting happier and happier with our service. The other thing we need to do is to grow the fund, and I told you we need to grow it to about 20 trillion by the year 2025. What are the things we've been seeing around the growth of the fund? First is obviously the contributions. Last year, we had an 8% growth in our contributions from 1.2 trillion shillings to 1.37 trillion shillings, a growth of almost 100,000, 100 billion, sorry. But you will have noticed that that graph, although it grew last year, the really main story around our collections is in the next slide, which is this. What does this slide tell you? This slide tells you that year on year, although we've been growing, that growth rate has actually come down. So if you look at the year 2011, 2012, we were growing at around 22%. That dipped to about 11% in year 2014, 2015, and then it improved to about 15% in 2018, and then slumped down to 5% only last year because of the COVID, and has slightly improved to about 8%. So the growth in contribution is slowing down over the years, and we believe that that is partly because the fund has matured, and a lot of people who would have normally subscribed to the NSSF, the new businesses are not growing as fast as they can. But the good news is that we grew faster than the economy, which grew at about 3.3%, and therefore our contributions did grow, but that growth is slowing down. So definitely the introduction of the new bill to enable us to offer new products to a new customer segment means that we are able to reinvent ourselves and hopefully provide new growth to the fund. On the assets that grew under management, we grew by about 17%, almost 2 trillion shillings, 2.3 trillion shillings, and you will have noticed that that growth was largely driven by investment income rather than contributions. You recall that our growth in contributions was only 1.37 trillion shillings. You will notice that our benefits reduced our contributions by about 632 billion shillings, which means that if you're looking net on net growth from our contributions, that was about 700 billion shillings, which means that the growth of about 2 trillion shillings means that our growth, sorry, of 2 trillion shillings, yeah, of the fund means that that was contributed largely by the growth in income of about 1.3 trillion, 1.4 trillion shillings. Next is the performance on the income. Again, revenue grew quite considerably. If you look at that graph, you'll notice that we've been having an upward trajectory. Obviously, the greenish line represents the expenses, which, as you have seen, have largely been flat. So our expenses between last year and this year were a growth of less than 100 billion shillings, actually less than 20 billion shillings, from 153 to 167. But our biggest growth, as you can see, is around the income, which grew from 1.4 trillion shillings to 1.8 trillion shillings. And of course, who benefits? The members, because that is all then paid into the members as interest to them, which will be announced a little bit later on. So one of the things that we continuously request from government is if we can ask for tax waivers on the investment income for the fund so that members can get this as well. And I'm sure the minister who is responsible for tax is in the room, and hopefully he can do something about it. So how did we invest the money? I've already talked about this asset allocation. 78% of our member balance continues to be held in fixed income. It is a predictable asset class. The yields on the bonds tend to be known before we invest. However, the asset allocation has been able to sustain us through these turbulent times. You all know what's been happening in the equity markets, certainly before last year, and also what's been happening in the real estate market where there's been a slump on returns. So certainly having a little bit of sure money, as we call it, in fixed income is a good thing. How have we done over the years? I think this is a very important graph for our members to understand that allocation, allocation, allocation is the most important thing. So if you look at the blue line, that is our fixed income asset allocation, which you'll notice that has been largely flat over the years. But what has been happening? Before the year 2011, 2012, we had a lot more money put in fixed income, in real estate. 15% of our asset allocation was in real estate. As you know, real estate in Uganda tends to be a little bit illiquid, one, and two, because of the turbulence that comes in the property market, the returns are not assured, and the only returns we get out of the real estate market tends to be revaluation gains. But see what has happened over the years. Because we were able to go and invest outside of Uganda, especially in the Kenyan market, in the equity markets, we've been able to increase our exposure to equities to almost 15%, at one stage 17%, but now 15%, and reduce our exposure to real estate. That shift away from real estate, of course, was attributed partly because of the slow absorption of funds in the real estate because of the procurement processes. But we also know that we progressively had to rebalance into the equities market in order to improve our returns. And as you've seen, the equity markets were our biggest savior this particular year. So definitely, allocation is a very important thing for us, and we do have a lot of models which we use to be able to determine what is the best way to allocate the investment both in Uganda and outside of Uganda within East Africa. That's where we are on our real estate projects. The New Sky changer in Kampala is about 70% completed. Pension towers will be available to the market towards the end of next year. Our prime project in Lubowa is about 80, almost 90% now. As I speak, it will change the face of that part of the city. And certainly, we've got one or two other small projects which will also be good game changers. We've got the big projects coming up, the Bwebaja project of the government campus, and certainly our famous Temangalo, which will, I'm sure, be a very good relief for the storyline to change from the bad stories we used to hear about Temangalo. So that, again, is one project we are looking forward to. So, in terms of investment, I think that demonstrates that we've been able to really cover our members so that we have more assets to be able to pay them should they want their money, and therefore to say that the fund is solvent and there are sufficient assets to cover all our member fund and liability. So let's look at some of the things we've done over the last 2 years. A lot of these relate to changing the customer. The first one is we acquired the narrow asset scheme, which was a fund that was being run by the narrow. And we acquired it and took over its members and its assets and its liabilities. And now the members of NARO are very happy contributing to the NSSF. You'll recall that NARO was a scheme that was approved by the minister, so they didn't have to contribute to NSSF. But as a result of this, they've basically said, NSSF does a better job, let's join them if we can't beat them. On the other part, we also see that Uganda introduced a 20-year bond. That's very good for us. For the very first time, we're able to invest in that. The good news is that it gives us good returns, but it also lengthens the yield curve. Those of you who are in investment know what that means. Because we have got long-term liabilities, we need a long-term investment. And certainly, by introducing a 20-year bond, Uganda has helped us. But not only did Uganda help us, Tanzania also came up with a 25-year bond for the very first time, and we took advantage for this extension, again, to improve the yields to our members. The other thing that we did was the integration with NIRA. For the very first time, our members now can undertake registration without necessarily coming to the fund, and they do that because we've got NIRA integrated into our database. So all you need to do is to put on your NIRA identity card number, and then you'll be able to be registered in NSF without necessarily coming into our branches. And then finally, we were able to introduce a self-assessment solution for our employers so that they do not need to come to NSSF to undertake what I would call what I call self-assessment and ensuring that they can apply for projects, and because most companies require that you are NSSF compliant. So if you are an employer, you would like to do that over a portal rather than coming in to ask for a clearance certificate. So we believe that that are some of the things that we've done over the last 1-2 years to be able to improve the experience of both our customer, but also our returns, and also to take on some new businesses. On the benefits payment side, we've been very, very busy. You'll notice that the number of payments that we made this year increased from about 25,000 per year to about 28,000, a big jump. We think that that's partly driven by the COVID pandemic. A lot of people who would ordinarily leave their money with NSSF have decided that they will come and pick their money, and we saw a jump in that. Unfortunately, that also resulted in an increase in the turnaround time to about 9 days. But we know that as a result of introducing a new system that we are working on, we call it the PASS. PASS stands for Pension Administration System. We will be able to improve the turnaround time to our customers and hopefully come to the 1 day that we've promised our members. What else have we done for our customers? We've used a lot of ML, and IA, machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve our data. In the past, NSSF had this perennial problem of having money received into the fund, and the money would not be paid into your account because we didn't know who you were, largely because you hadn't registered or your employer hadn't registered you, but they still remitted the money. What we've been able to do is to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to figure out this equation for us, and we believe that that is a big deal for us. It has enabled us to improve what we call the data quality index from a 76% in 2018-19 to a current 85%. So in effect, 85% of our data is absolutely clean as we speak today. We've optimized our queue management system and our call center, and we've also shortened the verification process for small claims. So if a claim is below 1 million shillings, you'll probably be paid within a few hours of placing your claim in the queue. On the staff, we've done a lot of work to keep our staff engaged, and that is all seen in what we call the staff satisfaction rating, which increased from 93% to 94% in there. These interventions are around staff welfare and also satisfaction are beginning to pay dividend. Our main challenge has been in managing a highly portable young workforce. As all organizations know, our average age is less than 37 years, and therefore we need to keep these millennials happy, but also very productive. And we've been able to do this through benchmarking our salaries, making sure that our staff are paid very well in the market. Secondly, we've run a very wellness program where we enable our staff to continuously keep on top of their health, make sure they're okay and ready to work. But I think the beauty is being able to allow our staff to work from home. When the pandemic hit, 100% of our staff went back to their homes. We were able to provide them with tools, and they were able to continue to serve our customers. Today, 30% of our staff come to the office, 70% continue to work from home. We've been able to enable them with the working tools to be able to do that. But I think for me, the lesson of COVID must be around training. What did we do? We decided that because it was COVID, we had a lot of downtime, especially in other things that we could do. So let our staff learn, and that's what they've been doing. And we did that all online with a very wonderful system which we're able to give. That system allows us to offer training and programs from big universities, and we feel that that has really helped us to make sure that our staff have grown and continue to be very productive, as you can see from the numbers. So, how have we created value for our members? These are the results. You look at that graph. That graph shows you the 10-year average inflation rate, which is our benchmark. The blue line is the interest we've been paying. As you'll probably all know, the inflation has been dropping. It has been dropping. You notice that it was about 2% this year. But what has been happening? The gap between the inflation rate and our interest that we offer to our members has been increasing. So member interests have consistently been above the 10-year inflation, and the minister is soon announcing what we're going to offer this year. I know that the newspapers have been all speculating, but let's wait for what the minister says. And I can only say that the numbers look better than the average inflation over the last few years. The other area where we've been giving value, of course, is around investment, but most importantly around making sure that we preserve the member balance by ensuring that we reduced our cost of doing business. Our cost of doing business is represented by our cost of administration index, which shows that it reduced from 1.19 last year to 1.06. If you ask anywhere around the region, you'll find this number is above 2% for many of the schemes around the region. We have hit 1%. Our target is to get it to below 1%. And the return is then given to our members in the form of interest, as you'll see in those graphs. The other thing we've been able to do is to demonstrate to our members that, look, in spite of the fact that you contribute money from your contributions, from your employer and what you put in from your salary, if you look at the average member who receives their benefit from NSSF, 44% of that benefit will include interest, and that's because of the whole issue around compounding of interest. So 44% means that the member is getting out more than they have actually put in, because what they've put in is only 19%, what the employer has put in is 37% of the balance, but 44% is what they get out of interest, which they wouldn't have got if they had not invested with us. Some of the things we've been able to do to respond to our members is around the invalidity benefit. You all know that during the COVID, bills were crazy. The hospitals were charging quite high, and we decided that we would make adjustments to our invalidity benefit to support our members who had been adversely affected by the COVID pandemic. And so far, we've been able to pay out almost 2 billion shillings. And that lady that you see in there is an example of one of the members that we actually paid out, and she's allowed us to tell her story. If you go on our Twitter account or on our social media account, you will hear her story on how she was able to get hold of her money to save herself from the horrible pandemic. In terms of convenience, we've already talked about some of the things we've done under self-registration. We've also talked about some of the things we've done around straight-through processing of benefits claims. We can now do that online. You don't need to come into our branches to initiate a benefit, but also simple questions that normally come through the customer. Again, we are able to do through our AI chatbot called Sanyu. You've already seen this. That's the walk-in. Again, shows you that our customers are preferring the e-channels rather than coming to us. And the financial literacy program, which I believe is one of the best in this country. We've been able to have almost 67 participants. We've already got over 1,000 graduates from our program. What does this program do? It enables our members to learn about entrepreneurship. It enables our members to have personal investment options outside of the traditional asset classes. It allows our members to increase their income while they're still working, which means that you can invest in passive assets, which will continue to give you a return that you don't need to monitor on a daily basis. So, for example, investing in bonds, investing in the equities, and investing in some of the other fancier products that are around without you having to follow them up. And then, certainly, one of the things we also offer during this financial literacy program for our members is professional growth and helping them to go up their career path. So, the value we've created for our employers, again, is around automation, a lot of automation in terms of when they pay in the money. I told you it takes 1 day to update the member statement. That payment today goes through a bank. It is processed and credited to the member, all automatically online, enabling employers to register, pay for their staff, from the comfort of their homes while using the internet. The other thing we've been able to do for our employers is the value proposition around contributions. At the height of COVID, we were able to defer some of their payments for a couple of periods. Almost 1,700 employers have benefited from that. That was about 20% of our contributions. The good news is that a lot of the people who deferred have been able to pay the money. We introduced an e-clearance portal, and so far we've been able to issue out almost 9,000 certificates. And we've also been able to install an online authentication verification system, because lots of people use our certificates for acquiring PPDA jobs or other jobs. Those certificates need to be verified, and we've been able to give an online certificate that verifies that. The final one is the one I'd already talked about, the electronic self-assessment tool that enables companies to do a real-time assessment on their compliance so that they are able to find out if they are good or they're not good. One more example of some of the people we've been able to touch. Again, this is a live example. This gentleman runs a company which was affected by the 1,759 amnesty applicants that we gave between April and September 2020. And it's a story that you can find again on our social media on how we were able to help his business during those very, very tough times. So, how have we created value for our society? We continue to do, in spite of COVID, in spite of the social distancing, we have still been able to do corporate social responsibility. And we continue to follow up on our education initiative. You all recall that for a very long time, we used to have the 7 Hills Run, where we collected money for schools. We continued to do that during this period, and we've been able to, this particular year, to give donations to 5 schools to improve their learning conditions, and this affected about 2,600 pupils. We continued also to run with the Career Expo. This is a great opportunity for people who are just graduating to be able to find out opportunities for themselves in the working world. This Career Expo is run within 15 universities, and so far this particular year we're able to impact 181,000 students. And finally, our health initiative is around the blood. We were able to raise blood in 5 regional camps, and also were able to raise over 5,000 units, and that helped almost 15,000 lives. The last story would like to tell you about a true person who benefited from our program is through the High Innovator, which we are in partnership with MasterCard. We've set aside 35 billion shillings to support small and medium-sized growing businesses and scaling them up. So far, 500 businesses have been able to benefit, and we know that 50,000 entrepreneurs have also been trained on our online training platform, and we know that out of these initiatives, almost 130 jobs will be created. This gentleman that you see in there is again one of the lucky beneficiaries, an entrepreneur that took a course and has been able to benefit his business coming up and being able to really create an impact on society through creating new jobs. And we are so excited about our High Innovator program, which we think once we scale it up, we'll be able to do loads of things. So as I wind down, what are our plans looking like? Our plans for the future are around the customer. We want the customer to have savings as a lifestyle. We would like to introduce a digital pension ecosystem that will enable us to continuously provide a retirement product. That will remain our core product, but we would like to introduce a mid-term benefit that covers life cycle risks, things like education, things like unemployment, things like health, things like housing benefit. Those are the things which we are going to introduce when the law allows. The services are to support our customers so that they can continue to grow, so that they can save, and savings becomes a big number so that the Minister of Finance is able to make decisions knowing that he's got a big pool of savings, so that he stops going abroad to borrow, but borrows from our local environment. We know that once we've done this ecosystem in place, we will improve passive saving for our members, and we believe that there will be more people from the informal sector also saving with the NSSF. We are currently experimenting with a small product we are calling the AgroDesk platform. Again, this is to help farmers, especially those in the informal sector. The problem is that they don't have markets and they receive low margins on their produce, and we know that they don't save for retirement. So what will this do? We hopefully will use information to be able to allow them to get a good price for their product, but also create a market for them. But once they make the sales, then they will have a forced saving that allows them to then put aside a pot for retirement, because we know that many of the problems we've seen with the farmers is that they don't have sufficient money to put away for retirement. So we are saying, if we come up with this product, which we have been experimenting on with some farmers in the east of this country, and once we've scaled it up, it will become a real good platform to enable our farmers get more money so that they can save money for their retirement. So, the bill. I'm sure everybody is waiting to hear what the bill is all about. The amendment bill that started in 2019 was meant to be signed into law not so long ago, but as you all know by now, it is back in Parliament, and there are changes that need to be made to that bill that were proposed by the President. We know that that letter now has been received by Parliament. We know that those amendments have been put in the new law, the new bill that's going to be discussed. We know that it's going to be introduced to Parliament, I believe, either today or in the next couple of days, and the debate will then begin, and then we'll hopefully get our bill back to the President for accenting to. So we are all hopeful that this bill comes. I know that the biggest headline on the bill is 20% midterm access, but I can tell you there is a lot more in that bill. What more is in that bill? It is this. It is the fact that we will be able to build a fund that caters for our members across their whole life cycle. We'll be able to provide products for our members from their childhood until their old age and through their adulthood. So the needs we know that they will have are care, learning, skills, life, nutrition, food, security, employment, and family. And then finally, food, social security, medical care, respect, and support. All those things will be provided by the products which we'll be able to provide out of the new NSSF Amendment Act. So, I would like to conclude and say that COVID definitely affected our employers and some of our employees, and some of them have lost work. That is a shame, but as a fund, we have seen a reduction in the rate of growth of contributions from 17 to 8% over the past years. But the fund has been resilient and continues to create value for our members. The future is bright. The future is about making your savings count for a better life for you. And we believe that that life will be in investment, in insurance, in affordable homes, in great benefits, while securing a great future and a better life. Thank you so much, and you're welcome.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Richard Biarugawa, the Managing Director at NSSF. I should point out to you, Richard, that these days the term midterm access is considered to be more valuable than I love you by NSSF members. So every time you say it, people get goose pimples. So very exciting to see the progress that's being made there. Thanks a lot for joining us. In case you've just tuned in, this is the 9th annual members meeting of the NSSF. We are not too far away from finding out how much our money has grown, which I'm sure is why most of us are tuning in, of course, but also you've had some very interesting things about how the fund is doing and where we are going at the moment. In summary of what the MD has said, if I was to squeeze it into one sentence, he's basically said the fund always pays more than inflation, and the gap between the inflation and the interest that the fund pays has been growing over the last few years. So in a nutshell, your money has grown. You'll get to find out by how much in a bit when the minister comes. But before he does, of course, we'd like you to get in touch with us, our hashtag AMM2021, and please do keep those comments coming. I saw one from at the Tracy. You were asking, how can I know my NSSF number by heart? Well, because of the NSSF Go app, I literally check my balance every day because I look forward to this midterm access. Also, I just keep dreaming every day about the things that I'm going to do. So I am literally on that app on a daily basis. So it's very exciting to see what the fund has been doing. And of course, we look forward to hearing more from you on Twitter. Do tag us. And of course, if you have any questions, do ask them. And we'll have the management team at the NSSF to come and answer those for you. Now, we're going to hear from someone who is very special to the fund. This is the chairman of our board of directors. He's our new chairman. We're very excited to welcome him to this. And he comes with a CV that is so long that if I was to introduce him with his CV, the meeting would end before I can conclude that. But just know that he has a wealth of experience as a business mentor, as a coach. He sits on very, very many boards. He's the CEO of the CEO Summit. He's been doing something with the CEO apprenticeship program with the Strathmore Business School for more than 10 years, on top of being a member of very, very many other boards and associations. The most important of which is that he's a very God-fearing person and is a member of the Kampala Archdiocese, which means that as the chair of the board of directors of NSSF, he's able to pray for our money to grow quicker than ever before. Please welcome with me the chair of the board of the directors at the NSSF, Dr. Peter Kimball.
Okay, thanks very much for, I don't know whether it's a very kind introduction or charitable introduction. First of all, I would like you to join me in thanking the Auditor General for the most important and reassuring statement that he has shared with us this morning, and also the MD, Richard Byarugaba, for taking us on the journey of good promise. Both of them deserve a clap. Can we clap for both of them? I'm going to be here for a very short time. I know everyone is waiting for the minister to announce everything we are waiting for today. So I'm just going to achieve a couple of things. Number one is to introduce my colleagues on the new board, to also thank my predecessors, especially the chair, Patrick Kaberenge, my colleague and friend, who led the management team to deliver, first of all, to create, capture, and deliver this stellar performance that Richard has shared with us. I would also be talking about the promise that we are making as a new board. But more importantly, I will also be launching a very important report at the end of it, and the minister will be here to announce most of the important things that we are waiting for this morning. Honorable Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, our Auditor General, the Chairman of Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority, the Chief Executive of the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority, the Managing Director, Richard Byarugaba, and also the formidable executive team at the National Social Security Fund, present here, but also our most distinguished and esteemed members. A very good morning to you all. Before I proceed to make my quick comments, I would like to acknowledge my colleagues who are present physically, but also those who are online, who are working on the 12th board of the National Social Security Fund. The first one is Patrick Ochailap. If he's present, stand up. Mr. Agre David Kibenge is online. Penina Tukamwesigwa. Honorable Sam Riomoki. Mr. Bahemuka Julius. Mr. Fred Bamwesige. And Engineer Silva Mugisha. And of course, Mr. Richard Byarugaba. It's my pleasure, Honorable Minister, to address you and address also the members of this 9th NSSF annual members meeting. It's my hope that you are all safe as we as humanity battle COVID-19, unprecedented and extremely virulent. There is little doubt that in the last financial year, there was a lot of challenge, both at personal and institutional levels. Several businesses experienced, first of all, financial shocks, demand shocks, but also supply chain disruptions, and obviously cash flow constraints. Members, our distinguished members, your fund was not completely exempted from the economic distress. But like you, our members, both at your individual and also work life, the fund has made commendable growth through resilience, comeback power, and also adaptability, which is bounce forward capacity. As the managing director has competently laid out the journey as it has been, we new board members have found one philosophy at the fund. And it's also a saying in Africa, that in Africa, we don't wait for the storm to pass. We just learn to dance in the rain. So whatever else is happening, the fund just has to persist. To the fund, one philosophical dimension they have is lockdown doesn't mean stand still. No, it's pursuing the logic of the future as opposed to the logic of the past. In other words, knowledge becomes less important than the capacity to imagine and imagine the future. This morning, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to touch just two broad areas. The first one is to highlight the board's accomplishments, which I think the managing director has ably outlined a few minutes back. And secondly, and most importantly, is to focus our attention on what we promise in the next financial year. Honorable Minister, the accomplishments of last year have been outlined very well by the MD. The board has demonstrated, the outgoing board, the board that was led by my friend Patrick Kaberenge, demonstrated not only oversight, but exceptional insight and exceptional foresight, the capacity to imagine. Working studiously with the management, they have delivered exceptional performance culture and also performance value. The fund registered growth in the following areas. Assets under management, I think this has been already mentioned, 17% growth from 13.3 trillion to 15.5 trillion as at June 2021. Total comprehensive income went up by 25% from 1.4 trillion to 1.8, almost 1.9 trillion. Member contributions increased by 8%. Benefits also paid out increased by 29%. And the cost of administration also improved by going down a lot more from 1.2 almost to 1.03. In addition, the fund's record of value creation through protection of member savings against the inflation. Members present in this forum, your funds are safe and secure, and they are growing irrespective of circumstances. Important to note also, the fund's assets under management are greater now than the total members fund, which means that the fund can actually meet all its member obligations in the short, medium, and long term. Our distinguished predecessors worked with the management to make a meaningful contribution towards the realization of the reforms. And at this point, I would want you to join me in thanking His Excellency the President in a very special way for his guidance, given the very contentious clauses that were in the amendment bill. Now that the previous amendments or the previous impediments to the amendments to the enactment of the NSSF bill have been resolved, we look forward and implore Parliament to exercise their exceptional degree of speed and promptness to consider the revised bill so that the President can assent to it without further delay. Our focus as a new board, going forward, the 12th board will focus on the following. Three. The first one is quick and speedy and expedited conclusion of the legislative reforms. As soon as the President assents to the bill, we shall expeditiously engage our Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development to publish the regulations. Honorable Minister, we continue to seek your guidance, your support and commitment to ensure that we usher in the much-awaited legislative environment. Point two is the investments. We will ensure that we continue to preserve not only preserve, but grow exponentially the members' savings through prudent investments. As I mentioned at the beginning, the fund has got a philosophical outlook that turbulence, the problem is not the turbulence. The problem and the challenge is to look at the turbulence with yesterday's logic. We focus on the creative imagination of the future in the area of capturing and delivering exceptional value to the investments. Talent optimization, to ensure that our staff are prepared for a different operating environment that will be ushered in by the legislative reforms. Honorable ministers and members present, we pledge to fulfill our fiduciary responsibility, which simply means that the board will act in a way that benefits members of this fund. We are also mindful of the fact that the fund exists for the benefit of the country at large. So it is twin responsibility to members, but also to the country at large. On this final note, therefore, please join me in launching the National Social Security Fund Integrated Financial Report, which is launched at this point and at this time. Honorable Minister and members, it's now my wonderful pleasure to join everyone else to invite you to come forward, Honorable Minister, and make the earth-shaking announcement to all members. Thank you.
A big thank you to you, Mr. Chairman. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now receiving the Honorable Minister, who apparently has a magic button in his hands, which he's going to use to reveal what the interest for this year is going to be. And we'll find out in just a moment as we listen to one of my favorite people in the whole of Uganda. I keep sharing with him that his sense of humor and optimism is exactly what Uganda needs at this moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Mataya Kasaija.
The Auditor General, the Chairman of the Board, the one which is now running affairs, but even the past one, is Kabarenge here? No member? No member of the previous board here? Yeah, you should have been here. Oh, Patrick. He represents it. And the members of the board, the managing director, Wana Richard, the chief executive officer, Ubra. Are you around? Ubra? Ah, good, good. Members of the fund, let me repeat, members, the owners of the fund. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to preside over the 9th NSSF annual members meeting. It's a pity COVID, as I know, the chairman, I said COVID has taught us the other things, which I agree with. When I was at university, there was my lecturer, who called Mr. Taylor from the United States of America. He used to say, young men and young women, for every situation, there is advantage and disadvantage. Now learn how to turn a disadvantage into an advantage. And I've never forgotten that lesson. For everything, there will be a positive and a negative. If you are a wise man, you look for the positive and exploit that positive, and you go ahead. That's what I'm telling people. COVID, yes, has come, but there are, I see, a lot of opportunities, even for your own country here. Did you believe that we could manufacture sanitizers here? We are not doing it here. From what I And believe you me, sooner than later, we shall also manufacture the Vaccine. I'm working on that one with the scientists. What am I saying? When you are challenged with the times or conditions, do not, I'm talking now particularly for the youth, don't say, "Abanange, we were dancing for that." No. It's the beginning. Look around. Look around, I can tell you, as we say, every cloud has got a silver lining. Yeah. There will be, I have seen it, I have lived, you know, I'm not a young man, 77 years plus now. So I have seen things. I've seen the world. Don't ever be despondent. That's the question I'm saying for the youth. Don't be despondent. Oh, Banange, no. Look at the positive side of the issue. I congratulate the fund, its members, upon the stellar performance registered during the last financial year, as Richard here has shown us. The performance, as presented by the MD and the chairman, is commendable given that COVID-19 pandemic has had massive economic and social effects across the globe. Uganda was no exception at all, with the economy growing at 3.3% in the financial year 2021. To register any growth is therefore very commendable. We should give them a cheer, please. Congratulations, Richard, and your team and the board. But before I proceed, there are a few things that I would like to make a comment on, coming from what the previous speakers have talked. Mr. Mwanga, and I would be very happy next time when you tell me in your report, because what unless I caught you wrongly, understood you wrongly, I want the issues distilled out one by one, so that I know then how to harass these people. 2, did I hear that there should be a reduction and a waiver in taxes? I don't know whether I heard it right, but I think I heard something like reduce or waive taxes. Richard, I want the taxes, please. So that your members can have good roads, they can have security first and most, they can go to hospitals and dispensaries and be treated, they can take their children to school. And if they fall sick, they can get a facility to treat them. So taxes, please, I want them. Richard, I want the taxes. 3, Temangalo. Temangalo, I remember I rang you. I really would want you to be open here so that the whole thing is captured. I still hear some grumblings. People are claiming, whether or not claiming, I don't know whether it will be sub judice, because some people, I don't know whether they have gone to court. I wish you could. It's in court. Then in that case, if it's in court, we shall not talk about it. So I will withdraw whatever I've said. But I must also really commend you for deepening ICT in operations of your job. That is the way to go. The world has moved. Me, I'm still a little bit unclear on the .coms. Some of them. You know, it takes long to teach all dogs new tricks. Me and the Mwanga, for us, we knew something very different. But for you, now, these youth of ours, they have discovered many things on how to do things very fast. And by doing those things very fast, people, please, we must be productive. You hear what he said. Some people are working at home. They don't have to come to the office. That's good savings. Me, at times I say, when I hear people quarreling about this lockdown and so forth, I said, yeah, that's true. But it has taught us to be smart and to avoid what we used to do, which today would appear as wasteful. I have a big quarrel with my constituents. They ring me, they say, Minister, we'd like to come and see you. Ah, you want to come to see me? To travel all the way from Kibale to Kampala to see me? I say, what? They said, we have got something that we'd like to tell you. I tell them, no, don't bother coming. Either send me an email if you have the facility, or let us talk on phone and conclude. I insist. They said, no, we want to. Now I said, no, you are not coming. Because I know what I'm saving you. So we talk on phone, and we conclude on phone. I have saved him money of transport to come from Kibale and come to Kampala. I have saved him money for accommodation and feeding, which eventually they will turn to me to talk in my pot. I have saved time. Ugandans, please, time is money. People are wasting a lot of valuable time on doing nothing. You sleep for 12 hours. Are you sick? 12 hours, somebody is still in bed. Even on a Sunday, please, go and exercise if you don't have something more useful to do, so that your body then will be more healthy. Like you can see Kashaija here. I've told you 77. I can fight with any one of you here. So please, I congratulate you really for deepening the usage of ICT. You will make our job much easier. I would like to emphasize 3 key issues before I perform the mandatory requirement of what everybody is waiting for. 1, resilience and stability of the fund. For over 6 years that I have been Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, charged with overseeing the fund has registered growth every year across its key performance indicators. It's not easy to get this achievement. I am aware that this growth is not by accident, but has been born out of a deliberate vision and a strategic focus. So, Richard and your team, I congratulate you. And Tasima. I would therefore like to applaud the board and the management for a job well done. The NSSF bill, the MD and the chairman have both mentioned the NSSF amendment bill. I therefore advise management to ready themselves to tap into the opportunity that will be presented when the bill is eventually enacted into law, and it's going to be enacted into law. Let me touch on the opportunities briefly. 1, coverage extension. Every employer, including those employing less than 5 employees, will be eligible to contribute to the fund. 2, value creation for members. The fund will also have the mandate to innovate new benefits for its members. You heard here in the strategic plan. 3, exponential growth of asset size. The fund will have latitude to collect even more savings from mandatory members in form of voluntary, on voluntary basis. The challenge I throw back to the chairman and the MD is to ensure the fund is ready to tap into the opportunities created. But I think from their strategic plan, it seems that one they are already addressing. I pledge my support in ensuring that this legislation is fast-tracked, I can tell you. Now that the president has returned, it delayed a little bit in State House. We are going to be in Parliament there, and we shall talk to the Speaker and everybody else and the members of Parliament. I'm a member of Parliament, to get this law out of our way so that now it can put the rest to history. After all, There is consensus on almost every clause now, and the bill will be beneficial for all parties involved. 3, protection of members' savings. Although inflation is now under control, below 4% over the last 4 years, it is utmost importance that members' funds are protected against effects of inflation in the medium and long term. I'm therefore happy that the fund has consistently paid members a very competitive return over the last decade. This brings me to one of the main reasons I am here today, and what you members of the fund have been anxiously waiting for. Interest declaration. In exercise of the powers conferred upon me by Section 35, Part 2 of the NSSF Act, I have now the pleasure to announce the following interest rate. Not yet? I press? 1, 2, 3. Has it come? I press again. This one, I'm doing gymnastics here now. I press. Again. It's coming.
You have it, ladies and gentlemen, your interest rate for the financial year 2020-2021, 12.15%. I think we should clap even louder. I know those of you who are watching at home should be very excited about this, and a big thank you to the Honorable Minister of Finance, of course, Honorable Kasaija. I hope you're excited about this number, Honorable Minister. Thank you for delivering this in such a difficult time.
Let this come from my own mouth. I have the pleasure to declare an interest rate of 12.15% to be paid in interest to members of for the financial year 2021. The new rate, this new rate equals to shillings 1.52 trillion shillings. It's above the 10 years average rate of inflation, which currently stands at 5.43%. It is one of the most competitive rates in the market this year. As provided for in the NSSF Act, this new rate will be calculated and credited to the balances of outstanding in every member's accounts as of 1st July 2020. I would like to congratulate NSSF board management, I have said that already, and staff once again for a stellar performance. In the same vein, I congratulate all members of the fund for saving with a fund that preserves the members' funds' value. And let me conclude. Please save money. I will repeat, save money. Ugandans, we have a bad culture. We don't want to save money. Those who are in politics, for those who are in politics, I will tell you my stories I see down there. You give a man 100,000 shillings. That's the of water. You say, okay, kwa ile mtwari kumgiki. The man makes sure that he spends that money before even he goes back home. Finished. He will go to drink alcohol, he will go to buy meat, finished. That poor savings culture, as you heard, I think the chairman said what Richard said. Please let's save money. And now, you see again, you see COVID. COVID, I hear, these days I hear. Everybody now says, banang. People say, you remember? We had now to buy, government has to buy post-show, to do whatnot. Because people in Uganda, we have a poor savings culture. I'm appealing to you, Ugandans who are watching and who will read this, please, learn how to save money. Don't worry, you know somebody say, hey, we're now, you die, your children are there. Yes, you don't have to eat and finish everything. I cannot really emphasize this matter serious. I mean more than this. Save money. Let me tell you how I came to learn how to save. People say, Kashaja is a mkonogamu, Kashaja is a mkonogamu. Yes, I'm a mkonogamu. That one I appreciate. I plead guilty. I don't want to waste money. I don't want to waste money. And I'm trying to inculcate it among my children. My dad is the one who taught me this. You know what he did? He was a small coffee grower. And he would go to work in the coffee shop every Saturday. Because Monday to Friday we are in school. Now, he made a little box made of wood and put a padlock. On a Saturday, after working, he would give us a shilling. Then 50 cents, put it where? In the box. Monday, go with the other 50, go and buy your kabaragara, whatever, whatever. But 50 cents are in the box. He will open it a few days before Christmas. Just a few days, a week to Christmas, he opens. Then he will give you the money, son. Now, son or daughter, we can go to the Katare and you buy a shirt, or you buy a trouser, or you buy a dress. That's how I came to learn how to save. I never finish all my money like that. I keep some. And with that, you'll be able to do many things, including putting up assets. But if you have to consume every shilling that you get, banana, every dollar you eat. So please, my fellow Ghanaians, I really urge us to save. Now we have this scheme. There are other schemes which we have not talked about. Please save. If you can't save with the scheme, save on your own. Open up a savings account. I know you people who are young, you don't know some of these things. Me, I suffered. During a minute's time, I had saved 40,000. 40,000 in 1974 was a lot of money. I could have bought a Mercedes-Benz. Actually, the Mercedes-Benz was about 40,000. Me, I bought a small car called Peugeot 204, which I bought at 18,000. And I got a loan from the bank for that, under the sponsorship of my employer at that time, Shell, BP. So, savings. And when you save, assuming, and you can be sure that as long as some of us are still around in this country, because we will not tolerate instability, I can tell you that, as it happened during Amin's time, because when Amin kicked away the Asians, the economy, inflation up. And by the time Amin left, that money was almost worthless. And I have never gone to claim it. 40, that was a lot of money. Now that we have a stable economy and a stable government, that I must give you assurance of. We have a stable government, we have a stable economy, please retire save money. With those so many words, I wish to congratulate all of you. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Now, a lot of what has happened today has been numbers, but the fund is about people and it's about faces. During COVID-19, the fund was able to pay out about 1.8 billion shillings in benefits to invalidity. And I want us to first hear a story from Nakamia Net. Thank you so much for joining us, Nakamia. Nakamia Net suffered COVID-19 in Entebbe Grade B Hospital, and on the sick bed she heard from the radio that NSSF was paying out invalidity benefits, and in under 2 days, if I got that right, she was able to get her benefits and get that treatment. Take us through how that was like.
Thank you so much for the chance given to me. I always wanted to say thank you to NSSF because the benefit came in handy. I was admitted to Grade B Hospital in June, and I was on oxygen, two cylinders every after 2 hours. And I was in a coma, that is what they told me, for 3 weeks. Then came back to life. But as I was lying on my bed, I could not talk. I heard my neighbor. She had put on radio on her phone, and I heard that NSSF was giving its members their contribution so as to access medical. I could not talk, but I managed to SMS one of my account holders, the one who helps me in NSSF, called JB. I talked to John through my WhatsApp that I've heard this. Is it true? He said yes, but he didn't know the degree of my sickness. So what he did, he sent me everything that I needed to do. I could not do that. So I sent also that message that John sent me to my husband, who did everything because I could entirely not do anything for myself. And as I was sleeping on my bed, for some reason, I don't know, I think I went back to coma, the doctor came in. Immediately after 1 day of sending him my information, he requested my husband that he should be able to come to Entebbe. Indeed, he did. He came, they took a video, and the next, like after 3 days, I was discharged. But as I was home, I saw a message come on my account, my DTB account, and all my money was given to me. Honestly, to be told, I did not expect it at that moment. But it took me just 2 days to get my money, and it came in handy. Remember, it was a lockdown, so everything was at standstill. But that money helped me. And you know, whoever suffered COVID, you know the after effects are much more than even the disease itself. So it came in handy. I had to buy medication. And even the medication actually that I was used to be treated with in Entebbe Grade B, it was that money that helped us. And even the balance, we managed to complete one of the rentals, and we are now okay. And actually, right now, I'm saving again with the NSSF.
Thank you so much, Annette. That's such a great story of resilience. What message would you send to the board and management of NSSF who have to make these tough decisions on a day-to-day basis, but also to other savers in NSSF who might be suffering from COVID-19?
Most people did not know that that money would help them at a certain point, because they know they get it only when they're at 55, right? But I would urge the entire working community at least to volunteer to save, because right now I'm saving again. Actually, even the money I used to save, I've increased it because I know I'll benefit at a certain point. Then I would also just extend my sincere thanks to the management, because at least many people were saved with their money, with their savings. It brought people back to life. You know how expensive medication was at that moment, because I personally, I could spend 280 to buy medication between 200 and 300 for a particular day. So without that money, I don't know how I would be. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Annette. A round of applause for her as she goes back to her seat. And I will invite Mr. Naika Enoch, who is going to come next. But in the meantime, Ben Mwine, what do we have on our social media feeds? What questions are people asking?
Some very interesting ones, Raymond, including the Honorable Minister challenged anyone in the room to a fight. Honorable Minister, it's my pleasure to announce to you that there are some people on Twitter who have said they would like to take that challenge. And in keeping with our idea to make money for members of the fund, I would like to propose to be the promoter of this fight, which we shall make it a pay-per-view fight. And the proceeds shall go to the members' account so that we can increase some more money. So yeah, I should warn our viewers, Raymond, that I have seen the Honorable Minister jogging, and I wouldn't take his threat very lightly. He has potential to actually throw a punch, so you want to be careful about that. We do have a lot of feedback coming through on Twitter, and some of these questions, of course, will be being answered later on by our MD and the NSSF management team. One of them, interestingly, is about Sanyu. They're asking if Sanyu is going to be able to speak more languages than English, so I'm sure that's something that we'll probably pick up on. Some of the other questions are a bit more technical about the loss, of course, of value because of our currency and its appreciation against the Kenya shilling and what's been going on there, Raymond, and some other questions that we will be picking up on as we go along the way. But of course, at the moment, we're hearing some more incredible stories from some of the beneficiaries that Raymond is talking to, and I believe he has someone else right now.
Thank you so much, Ben. I offer to be a co-promoter for that fight. I also need to increase my savings. But right now, let's talk about the punches that NSSF has been throwing in the SME market. And with us, we have Mr. Enoch Naika. Mr. Enoch Naika benefited from the High Innovator Fund by NSSF. Enoch, just briefly tell us your story with the High Innovator Fund and how NSSF helped.
I got to know about the NSSF High Innovator program through actually, let me introduce myself first. My name is Naika Julius. I lead the team at Famnera that's building Africa's largest farmers marketplace, where they can easily source for genuine, quite affordable farm inputs, provide last mile delivery, e-extension services, and also produce market linkages. And I got to know about the Innovator program, NSSF Innovator program, through the Innovation Village that informed me about it, and I had to apply in 2019. And so we got among hundreds that applied. NSSF spot out Famnera as a game, because game knows game. And so because it noticed us, and so we had to participate in this program, and we managed to do early advancements of our USSD code, which is targeting 85% of the farming community, which is the largest employer. Agriculture is the largest employer in Uganda, and NSSF understands that through tapping into this gap, it can be able to have more savers in. And so because Famnera is here, so we are happy to be able to support NSSF to fill the gap. And as of 2020, we've been able to serve over 110,000 smallholder farmers, and also created over 5,000 direct jobs across the entire agriculture value chain. So with this High Innovator program, we're very hopeful and happy that we're going to work together with NSSF and be able to close the gap, especially volunteer savers who are in the agriculture sector, primarily in rural areas. So, and we are happy that we are in a partnership, relationship with NSSF. Yeah.
You work in a sector which is one of the biggest sectors that employs most of the Ugandans. What kind of technical assistance did NSSF give you that helped you appreciate the kind of problem you're dealing with in that market?
From this program, we got to actually have NSSF bring on board BDS, Business Development Service Consultants, that managed to actually show us a clear picture of how to do certain things in the right way, and also
people that are able to show us how to be able to actually scale from where we are to actually another level where we can be able to actually grow and scale out, not only in Uganda, but also in other external markets. Also, NSSF managed to give us something in terms of capital to be able to actually implement these developments that we were supposed to do in order to have this project on ours, which was to start our development of the USSD code implemented in the earlier stages.
All right, thank you so much. And a round of applause for him is one of the 1,500 SMEs that have benefited from the High Innovator Program. We're going to speak to Ijo Alex next, who is a voluntary saver with NSSF. Of course, you know there are over 20,000 voluntary savers with the fund who bring in about 20.5 billion monthly. But first, let's ask Ben Wina what's happening on the social media channels as Alex gets here.
Raymond, as you can imagine, our interest rate for this year has excited everyone, and so a big thank you to the Honorable Minister for making us a lot richer, and the fund as well, to Mr. Biarugawa and the entire management team at NSSF, and of course our board chair for doing an amazing job. In case you're just joining us, we are at the 9th annual members meeting for the National Social Security Fund, where the Honorable Minister Kasaija has just announced a whooping 12.15% interest return for the year 2020-2021, which is an amazing return considering the circumstances that we've been going through over the last 2 years. And wherever you are, I hope you can give a big, big hand clap to the Minister and NSSF for what they have done for us. Again, going above and beyond what we expected, honestly, with what's been happening. And Raymond, a lot of the buzz on social media is really about that, to note that the interest rate that has been announced by the minister is higher than what we got, the 10.75, but also the fact that the interest rate and the amount to which it is, the 1.5 trillion, is going to be going to members' accounts. So I am constantly monitoring my phone, Raymond. I have the NSSF Go app. Like I said, I watch it every 2-3 hours to see how my money is doing, and I'm a bit excited to see what that balance is going to be by the end of today when that SMS comes through, Raymond.
Thank you so much, Ben. I'm also excited. Actually, I calculated mine, and I'm reaching out to Richard on that Luo Estate deal. But I must say now that we're going to have a departure of our Honorable Minister, Matia Kasaija, who's given us this interesting news of our interest rate. So I think we'll just clap him out as he goes to appreciate him for performing this honorary task of delivering for us an interest rate.
I think he deserves a standing ovation as he leaves. Honorable Minister, thank you for making us rich today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to that fight. We shall be setting it up. Honorable Minister says that we should go and reinvest that money, Raymond, so.
All right, thank you so much. And as the minister leaves, we have someone that has invested their money voluntarily into the fund. Many of us are there by compulsion, but some others choose to be there voluntarily. 20,000 savers come to NSSF and bring in 20.5 billion shillings voluntarily. And Alex, tell us the story about just volunteering to save money with NSSF without being compelled.
Thank you very much. I am Alex Thomas Ijo. I work with Cavendish University, Uganda. And I've been saving with NSSF for like 20 years. Basically, I have been happy with the interest that NSSF puts on my savings. And I reached a point where I wanted to get part of my money, which I believe would have been catered for by the midterm access, but that product has not been there. So I was told that I would have to withdraw the whole amount. And if I wanted, I could still save with NSSF through the voluntary savings scheme. So I opted for that, and I decided to withdraw my money and remove the part that I wanted to invest and sort out a few issues. And I put back the rest in the voluntary savings scheme. So that is what I did.
What kind of advice would you give to people who are about to get their money from NSSF about reinvesting with the fund?
Well, I think I am totally happy with what NSSF is doing. And I think if you see the interest that has been announced today, I don't know anybody who would want to miss out on such an interest. So I would advise, unless you have a better investment, you could keep your money with NSSF even after you clock 55.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. Let's clap for him as he leaves. Thank you so much for sharing with
Thank
us
you
your
too.
story. Of course, with the interest rate declared by NSSF, only illegal money lenders can match that interest rate, and that's not allowed under the law. So the best place to keep your money is with NSSF. I have just one last person, Kintu Aquaman, who is a financial literacy, who benefited from NSSF financial literacy program, and he together with about 67,000 other people benefited from that program. So if Chintu can come and we have a conversation about benefiting from the financial literacy program of the National Social Security Fund. Of course, NSSF doesn't just save and keep your money and pensions, it also helps you understand how money works. So, Chintu, thank you so much, first of all, for agreeing to speak to us today. But do tell us, what was the financial literacy classes like for you with NSSF?
Thank you. My name is Chintu Akram, Junior Gates, and I would love to put this on record. History is more than the path left by the past. It can influence the future and can shape the current. In 2019, NSSF came to my workplace, Golf Course Hotel, and they told us about this amazing opportunity. I've always wanted to become a financial literacy trainer, go out there in the world, help other people shape their current financial situations. And I attended. It happened every Wednesday from, I think, March to June. And Wednesday is party night. Others made a choice to go and party. We made the choice to go and learn. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, says, 3 years, decision you make 3 years or 5 years ago can determine your current position today. And that's why I said history is more than the path left by the past. I joined NSSF Financial Literacy Training. We attended, were over 300 people who were pioneers. And after we graduated, other people told us it will not come to an end. NSSF was just joking. After that, a few parties were chosen in conjunction with Bank of Uganda to become financial literacy trainers. And I take the honor to be one of them. And I did not just take on the opportunity, I used it to change my life. Over the years, we've started up a farm with my friends, which was telecasted on TV. And we started with tomatoes, and we did sweet potatoes. It wasn't an easy task, I should tell you, but we continued. And I realized other people walking up to me, how can you help me? So we came up with a way. I should say this. It starts, I call it your MBA choice matters. Life starts with a mindset. It goes to behavior. It goes to abilities and attitudes. And for us, we believe somebody needs personal values, personal growth, personal abilities and talents, and personal achievements. I use my skills to impact on other people. I have clients who came to me and one of them had a 50 million in cash. I have it on my account and I told her, you know what? Money does not grow because you save it. Money only grows because you risk investing it. And today she's proud to be running her farm just because of the skills I acquired.
Akram, very finally, if I could ask you, what has that financial literacy class taught you about your behavior with your own money?
Like I said, philosophy, your MBA is your choice. People go to attain an MBA in school. I chose to attain an MBA of life. And this is mindset. You have to fix your mindset. Number two, put your behavior in order to adopt great habits. Habits are learned behavior. Number three, unlock your ability to become valuable. That's why I go to attain more education or more skills or training in order to become valuable. And lastly, utilize your attitude well. It is not where you are now, where you're going matters. And lastly, putting this on record, it is not how much you earn now. It is what you do with what you earn. And I proudly thank NSSF for choosing to have me have my story. And lastly, Mr. Raymond, for the good work NSSF has done, I committing and pledging that I'm starting up an investment club, which already have a constitution ready, a strategy plan and a business plan for it. And I always told Mr. Richard that I'm going to name it Made by NSSF, because they made me who I am today.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Akram. I will charge you a small bill for that advert so that I can add it to the savers money. But thank you so much for speaking to us. And you've heard, the fund is not just numbers, it's also faces. And through the last 4 people, you've seen the faces that are behind some of the things that the fund is doing. And now I'm happy to hand it back to Ben Mwine to continue us with the program for today.
Thank you very much, Raymond. As you can imagine, we do have a lot of questions that are coming through on online, and we're going to be starting our Q&A session very briefly, and the management of the NSSF is going to be here to answer any questions that you might have. And we want to encourage you to use the hashtag AMM2021. So hashtag AMM2021. If you have any questions that you want to ask about the interest rate this year, about what the fund is doing with your money, about future plans, whatever questions there might be, feel free to ask those, and we're going to put those to the management in just a little bit, as I believe Raymond probably spoke to one more person, and then we'll start your Q&A.
Definitely, and we call the biggest boy in the room, Moses Kabu, who comes from Tugende, who I believe have the best valuation for any startup in the city. They benefited from the amnesty program of NSSF when the COVID-19 lockdown happened. NSSF asked some of its members who could qualify for amnesty to take that amnesty and pay their members' benefits much later. So Moses, who is from Tugende, just briefly tell us, how did Tugende benefit from this amnesty program, and how did it impact your business?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Before I tell you about how the amnesty helped us, let me tell you briefly about Tugende. We are an asset financing company. As of today, we've served over 50,000 clients. We currently are in 23 branches across Uganda. We have 5 branches in Kenya. And we have an employee number of close to 800 as I speak. Our philosophy is people as a company. It's people first. So in that regard, we at Tugende, we try to build relationship with our stakeholders. And in building this relationship with stakeholders, it moves to partnership. Because only when you understand the level and the benefit of partnership with your stakeholders, like NSSF, you will value beyond the transaction or the ordinary relationship. So in 2020, when we applied for the amnesty, our relationship manager, Mr. Javan, informed me that, okay, there's an amnesty coming, and because of the situation and the liquidity constraint organizations are facing. And we did. And one thing I can say, we got approved. And after approval, in not paying our employers' contribution for the next couple of months, we were able, in turn, able to pay our employees. Together, during this COVID period, one big factor I want to bring out, we did not let any employee go. 100% were retained, and 100% of them were paid their full salary as I speak. So that was huge. That was a welcoming partnership with NSSF.
For people that run businesses, operation costs are really the hardest thing to meet on a day-to-day basis. What would you tell them about applying for this amnesty program, and how can they benefit from it?
Oh, cash is king, right? So the COVID really brought that out, right? So my advice to any business is, whenever you have the opportunity to leverage and save cash, right, take it. because with that cash, right, you can invest and reinvest it. You heard from the managing director about investment opportunities, right? So even as a business, right, you will save that cash, right, and use it in other portfolio building, portfolio development, such as our type of business, right? So my advice to you is, please, whenever you heard about an opportunity, take it, rush into it and take it, because you recycle that cash flow within your OPEX cost.
All right, thank you so much for this. A round of applause for him. He's one of 1,400 businesses that benefited from the NSSF amnesty program. Now, I'll hand it back to Ben Mwine. What's coming from the socials? And are we ready for that fight with the minister, Matia Kasaija? Do we now have any takers? Or we are down to our bad promoting job?
Let me actually join you right here, because our next session happens from here. So this fight, who's your money on?
No, my money is on Matia Kasaija. In any case, he loses, he'd still pay me back.
I know, right? It ends up doing. What's your experience so far been of the members' meeting, how it's going, how the fund is doing, what you've had?
I've been to many members' meetings, but that digital clock really had me waiting.
I know, right?
It really had me waiting. I think the next time they should keep it. They should keep the digital clock.
It definitely works. And actually, we do have a poll that's running online, whether it's on Zoom, on Twitter, on YouTube, any of the online platforms where you might be joining us from, where we're asking you to share what your experience of the annual members meeting has been for this year, any improvements you think that we can make, what you have liked that has been exciting. So for you, obviously, it's the clock.
Yes.
That suspense just sort of, you get a little bit of some goosebumps, yeah, just waiting for that figure. So you did say you were excited about, that text message. So what do you expect your interest to be this year?
It's enough to go to Lubowa and ask for a house. This is what I'm telling Richard now. I'm going to Lubowa and ask for a house.
I know, right? I actually wasn't kidding when I say I look at my NSSF go up every day. I just I'm thinking, okay.
I'm still a long way off from 55, so I don't look at it very oftenly, but when I look at it...
Well, we have the amendment, so 45 is coming closer. How far away are you from that?
I wouldn't bet my money also on that. All right, Ben, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Raymond Katamuzuni, for joining us and, of course, for helping us with pulling out these incredible stories. So what we're going to do now is... have a Q&A session that's guided by you, because you've been asking questions online, and we're going to have those answered. And to answer those, of course, we'll invite back to the main platform our Managing Director, Mr. Richard Biarugawa, to join us on the platform and answer some of the questions, as well as our Deputy MD, Mr. Patrick Ayota, who is going to join us on the podium as well. Our Corporation Secretary at the NSSF, this is Madam Agnes Isharaza, is also going to join us to answer some of your questions, as well as Mr. Gerald Paul Casato, who is our Chief Investment Officer, to answer any questions that you might have. I want to remind you, if you want to have any questions answered, use the hashtag AMM2021. That's hashtag AMM2021, and we'll get to your questions and answer those. I'll start with you, Richard, very briefly for some of the questions. Of course, everyone is excited about this new law. You've talked about it. The chairman has talked about it. The minister has talked about it. And the big question that everyone is asking, and we've got quite a few some hundreds of people asking this, what's the impact of that law on the operations of the fund going forward?
Massive changes. We need to change the way we operate. Basically, at the moment, if you're really thinking about it, our business model is around collecting 15% and investing that for retirement. What the law will allow us to do is now to allow people in 2 or 3 categories to join the bandwagon. How will they do that? The informal sector, people will be able to join and voluntarily contribute. Targeted saving, probably a window 2, if you would like to call it that. But basically, we will be able now to allow more members to join us in order to save outside of the mandatory scheme. So if you are in the informal sector, as I said, you can join. If you are in the formal sector and already contributing, you can top up. If you are not in any employment, you are an owner of a business, but you would still want to save for a product that relates to health, that relates to things like education, if you want to save for a house, or if you want to save for something like even unemployment, because unemployment is a really big risk for us. So hopefully, that will mean that we will need to create another account for such a member, because they are not saving for their retirement, but they're saving for what you'd call short-term and medium-term.
Yeah.
Of course, in terms of delivery, as an institution, we need to look at our delivery model. We currently obviously have a lot of branches which are servicing our customers, but imagine, the numbers are staggering as an opportunity. There are about 19 million Ugandans who work. We currently have a database of about 2 million who currently contribute, but once the new law comes in and allows us to do a little bit more, then there's 19 million members who could potentially join us. Can we do it with branches? Maybe not. Can we do it with technology? Definitely yes. So we need to restructure the fund to be able to adapt to that new working. And I think that's why we need to, as I said in the presentation, we need to reinvent ourselves and be ready for that new opportunity which will come with the new law.
And that actually does sound very, very exciting. Let me move on to Mr. Gerald Paul Kasato, who is our Chief Investment Officer. You heard Raymond talking about how he is coming to Richard to get a house in Loa with his interest from this year. Not every member has as much money as Mr. Muzuni does, and a lot of the people online are asking, what is the fund doing to try and make sure that we have some more affordable housing, cost-efficient housing for your members?
Thank you for the question. The question of affordable housing is not a challenge for Uganda only, but so many countries in Africa. There is a think tank called Center for Affordable Housing. They did a survey in 2020, in their 2020 report, and they actually came up, they do it for all the countries that are members of that think tank. They came up with a number of 183 million shillings as the minimum a formal developer can build a house for. Now that house will probably be around 60 square meters, so that is around 3 billion Uganda shillings per square meter. So now let me address the question with a statistic, after sharing the statistic. So when you look at our projects, we not only have Lubowa, but we have the Chanja project, which Richard alluded to in his presentation. That project will have 160 units. Construction is around 40%. We expect to finish next year. We are targeting a selling price of 200 to 300 million shillings. Now, when I convert that selling price to price per square meter, that is about 2.3, 2.2 million shillings per square meter, which compares favorably with a statistic from the Center for Affordable Housing, which is around 3 million shillings per square meter. Moving on again with more information to give you a little bit more insight, there is a developer who I don't want to mention that partnered with some Chinese contractor to put up some low-cost housing in St. Emma. The project is selling for $17,000, which if you convert at the exchange rate, it's about 61.2 million shillings. Now, the selling price per square meter is of course lower at 1.6 million shillings per square meter, but the reality is that the unit is so small, the unit is only 38 square meters. Now, if you look at the average household of a Ugandan family, on average you find about 6 to 5 people. So a house of 38 square meters cannot sustain the livelihood of an average Ugandan household. So in terms of what we are doing, we are aiming to deliver bigger houses at an affordable price. And as I said, our price compares favorably with the Center for Affordable Housing. We will be doing 2-bedroom apartments at a total square meter of 89. 89 is bigger than the 60 square meters. We will be doing 3-bedroom units at 130 square meters. Again, that number is way higher. Now, moving on, we have a contractor at Temangalo. We actually have a design and build contractor at Temangalo. We are starting this project this year. We expect to roll out 550 units. The master plan has 3,500 units. So the short answer to the question is that we are doing something about it, and we are performing much, much better than the average on the continent.
That sounds very exciting. Let's turn to Corporation Secretary, Madam Agnes Isharaza. You're the lawyer, and as you can imagine, everyone is sort of intrigued and interested in this law that's coming. But not only that, but also the pensions liberalization bill. What do we expect? A lot of people are asking now that the president has sent this amendment to Parliament, is it now a law, is it not? What's happening with that?
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, members. So the chairman, the minister, the MD have already spoken about the law, the amendment to the law. So the simple answer is it's not yet a law. The bill was presented to the president for his consideration and, if acceptable, assent. The president raised some concerns. We've heard that, thankfully, all the stakeholders have now harmonized their positions on those contentious provisions in the bill, and that the president has now written back to Parliament advising the harmonized position. So, like we've been reading in the press and we've heard on various media channels, the process in Parliament is such that that bill unfortunately lapsed with the end of the 10th Parliament. So we have been advised that the process in Parliament, which is really in line with the rule of law, is such that the bill will be considered afresh. But thankfully, given the interest in the bill, we've also had assurances from the Speaker personally and from our Minister today that everything possible will be done to fast-track the bill. So we are waiting for that process to be concluded. On our part, as management, we also have to assist with the process of coming up with the enabling regulations. We've already started on that process. And again, like you've already heard, we'll be presenting those to the minister who has confirmed and undertaken to fast-track the same. So simple answer, no, it's not the law. The process is on course. All stakeholders have committed to fast-track the same, and we are waiting for the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. I'll turn to Mr. Ayota, Deputy MD. As you can imagine, a lot of the questions that are being asked online are mostly from members who are itching to get their hands on some of this money. So lots of questions about midterm access. But there's also a very important question to you, Mr. Ayota, about what's happening with people being able to use their balances as collateral to borrow from banks. Do we know if and when that's going to be happening, and how does it come to be?
The good news is, and this is to the members, there are provisions within the law, as Richard talked about, that will give the fund the flexibility to come up with products that are very relevant to our members. And one of the areas that actually members have raised concern with, the opportunity they miss, because think about this, if you want to go and buy a house today, let me say it's even 100 million shillings, and the bank asks you for 20% down payment, that amount of money is a lot, and it becomes a bottleneck to owning a house. One of the things we envision, if the law is passed and the provisions stay in there, is basically we can provide an opportunity where you can use your balance, maybe 50% of your balance, as collateral, basically to secure that mortgage. The money doesn't leave the fund, but now the bank is comfortable enough to say, well, maybe you don't need a down payment of the 20 million shillings to get a house, or maybe you can get a lower rate because we've de-risked that aspect from the bank. So we're looking at the various options that will come through the law, and believe us, what, as Richard said in the morning, members' welfare is our concern, and we do all what we can to make sure that we utilize the opportunities within the bill and within the law to actually bring value and relevance to our members.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Ben, sorry?
Yes, please go ahead.
If I may? Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I forgot a very significant part of the question you asked me, the question about the liberalization bill. The simple answer to that is that bill was withdrawn by Cabinet in 2018, and in lieu of that, the amendments to the NSSF Act were proposed. So that bill was shelved by Cabinet. Thank you.
Right, thanks. So we wait to see what happens with that. Richard, everyone is excited about the interest we've received, 12.15, very big figure, especially in light of COVID and what's been going on with that. But some very curious members online want to dig a little bit deeper to find out how exactly were you able to give us such an amazing figure where did the fund make most of its money? Which asset classes made the fund the most money in the previous financial year?
That's a very good question and very relevant. So if people were paying attention to my presentation, there are two main areas where we made quite a significant return. One was, as usual, the tried and tested and long-lasting solution to every problem that belongs to the fund, fixed income. We were able to return an average of about 15%, slightly less than 15%, I think 14.3% on our fixed income portfolio. 14? 14 point?
16, Richard.
16, okay, 16. Sorry, 16% on our fixed income portfolio. The second area, if you are paying attention, was even more dramatic because if you notice that the stock market in Kenya increased by almost 20-something%, that largely contributed to a 19% return on our equity portfolio. So those two asset classes did perform very well. The asset class on real estate did not perform as well as the other two. It returned about 8%. So if you commingle those returns based on their weightings on the portfolio, it does come down to a gross of about 13 or almost 13 and a bit. And if you remove our 1% expense, that would probably leave you around the 12.15%, which we declared today. So to answer the question, we made quite a lot of money under our fixed income portfolio. We made quite a lot of money under the investment from in equities. A little portion was made in the real estate as well. And of course, the interest could have been higher actually if it weren't for the losses that we incurred on the currency. And if you look at our financial statement, that's around 300 billion shillings because of the appreciation of the Kenya shilling, sorry, the Uganda shilling appreciation against Kenya shilling, which resulted in that loss on our financial statements.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's very annoying that our currency becoming stronger cost us money. I'm very angry at this. Yet I should be happy, I guess, right? I think I fall in the category of people who really don't care which asset class made money as long as you made money for us. So, which is why the fund does what it does, and we sit back and enjoy the interest. Mr. Kasato, a quick question for you here. Is there any scenario, again, because a lot of the members are asking about being able to access money, we've heard about midterm access and all of these things. Is there any scenario in which the fund can be converted to some sort of pension scheme where we can be able to actually make some money on a monthly basis being given to us? Is that something that would even be envisaged at any point in any way?
Well, thank you, Ben, for the question. I think in Richard's presentation, he actually said it that one of the things the NSSF Amendment Bill or the amended NSSF Act will present the fund is the opportunity to offer other sort of products. So essentially, the design of the scheme today, it's a provident fund. In other words, you get a lump sum. An annuity is where you exchange a lump sum for a regular income. We believe that going forward, if the law allows us, we should be able to structure ourselves to deliver an annuity. Internally, we are prepared, and we're just waiting for the law.
Right. And for the record, for simple people like me, annuity is where you're able to pay out money on a bit of a regular basis, correct?
That's correct, Ben.
All right, thank you. I've been hanging around you guys, so I'm learning some of these things as well. Let's come to our company secretary again. As you can imagine, there are some people who might not be too happy with what's happening with the fund. I'm seeing a number of tweets, people asking about what's happening with Makerere staff, and they're accusing you of suffocating them. What's the story there? What's happening with Makerere University staff?
Thank you, Ben. It's sad to get such feedback because, like you know, the fund's purpose is to make our members' lives better. So if a member is out there and expressing such sentiments, it's sad. But let me give some background to give context to where that comment is coming from. So NSSF is mandated by law to collect contributions from eligible employees and employers, unless such employers are exempted by the minister. So Makerere University is one of those employers that the fund has been seeking to collect contributions from for its employees, our members. And there was an issue of interpretation of the law to the extent of whether the law, our law, applies to Makerere or not. Makerere runs its own private occupational retirement benefit scheme. So that is the background, I believe, to the question that has been asked. And until June, the fund maintained that it had the mandate to collect by law. And unfortunately, this misinterpretation or failure to agree on the interpretation of the law resulted in litigation. So thankfully, and what was always meant to be the ultimate solution, exemption by the minister, was granted to Makerere in June this year. So in fact, until June this year, the fund was rightly endeavoring to exercise its mandate as required by law. It's a compliance issue. So now that has been resolved. So effective June, going forward, the scheme at Makerere is acknowledged to be an exempt scheme. There are a few residual issues regarding how we handle the period prior. We are mutually working together to address those, and those will also lead to determination of the matter in court. But like you've already heard from the brief by the MD, our doors are always open. So he shared the story about Naro, which eventually, crossed to the fund. So our members in Makerere, our doors are always open. We believe that we shall find a way of serving you and making your lives better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Agnes. That's a very endearing term. But of course, if things do go whichever way they do, people have the option of becoming voluntary members, which I have now become, by the way. I'm actually
absolutely
now a voluntary member. I try and put my 10K whenever I get it on mobile money, and it's very exciting to see.
Yes.
Let me come to Mr. Ayota. I do notice over the last few years, I've been seeing a lot of things to do with innovation and NSSF doing lots of different things that seem to be getting into the innovation space. If you can just briefly tell us about the thinking behind that and some of the big things that are happening on that before I let you go and bring in some more of your colleagues to answer a few more questions.
Thank you, Ben. I think in the innovation space, as Richard actually indicated, innovation is one of our values, and we try to live those values. And he covered quite a plethora of things we've done internally when you look at the space of technology. The reason why you could actually continue to serve members when the pandemic hit and there was lockdown is because 4 years ago we began a journey that would actually enable our staff to transition to working off the workplace. So when the first lockdown came, as Richard said, 100% of us started to work from home. By the time the second lockdown came through, it was just business as usual for us, so we could still serve our members from them. That major piece in terms of technology that we did. He talked about the financial literacy and others, but let me tell you something about innovation that's so endearing to us. It's actually the impact. The financial literacy, the first class we had 134 members. It was a 6-month class. They had to come physically and meet once a week, every Wednesday. 2 stories. There was a doctor from Ginger. Every Wednesday for 6 months, once a week, he drove from Ginger to attend that class. We didn't even know why. But more importantly, there was a couple. They joined the class, and we didn't really know about this until they graduated. On the graduation day, they stood up to give their testimony. Apparently, the man, they were in their mid-50s, the man was a typical us, African man. I make the money, I make calls how we spend it. His wife, I realized that along the way, the spending wasn't very high. So it had become a point of friction to the point that before they joined the program, they were on the verge of divorce. They go through the class together 6 months later, and they stood up and said, now our marriage is stronger because now the wife is handling the money. And that impact is something we didn't see coming. And you wonder, so how do you measure that impact? How do you measure the touching somebody's life? That through a program that you didn't even think somebody's marriage was saved because they're willing to listen and go to the class. And so there are a plethora of stories. When you look at the startups, Famunera talked about there, what we realize, people in Uganda, if we want to create jobs and create our futures, remember, when you create jobs, we create members for us. If we are going to create jobs, we need to be able to help people who are entrepreneurs start. Most banks, we have an ecosystem of how jobs are created. You have an idea, You pilot the idea to see, will it work? You commercialize the idea, will somebody buy it? If those three are lined up, you scale it. In the scaling stage, there is enough money. Banks are there waiting. They tell you, you have 3 years of experience, audit books, you come, we'll give you the money. In the commercial space, there's some money. We have got venture capitalists there. In the idea stage, there's actually enough money. We have 24 business incubator centers in Uganda. You have an idea, you can go there, it will be cleaned up. In the pilot stage, nobody wants to put money. And that's why we said we would play. And Famunera is an example. First cohort, they've survived COVID. He's expanded. This year, we hope to fund about 100 startups. We've built an ecosystem where you don't have to have a physical presence. We launched our online classes in May 10th. We got 1,500 people go through the class by August 10th. The most amazing thing, they came from all over. Moroto, Arua, Kasese, Kampala. So the reach is greater in terms of what we do. And the more we do that, the more chances that we'll create a better future for this country.
Wow.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I think, Richard, we need to add on to the report for next year, marital counseling as one of the one of the highlights of the NSSF. If people's marriages are being saved because they are attending these financial literacy classes, that's definitely a big highlight. Big thank you to Mr. Ayota, to Madame Ishalaza, and to Mr. Kasato as they leave the stage. And as they do, I'm going to invite our next set of panelists. Milton Owor is Head of Human Resource and Administration. Mr. Stevens Mwanje is our Chief Financial Officer. And our Head of Business, Geoffrey Sajabi, to come and also take some of your questions. As they do, Richard, the question coming here for you, of course, as you can imagine, there's lots of questions yet about this midterm access. It's a thing that everyone is asking about. And someone is asking why it's being limited to 45 years, and yet some members have served for more than 10 years, including myself. And so my age hasn't reached 45. I'm just 3 shy of that. And yet I have a lot of money with you that could help me do a lot of things. So why are you shutting us out of this midterm access?
Okay, so all this was played out actually in the discussions that were going on in Parliament. This was also played out in the negotiations that were going on between the stakeholders, mostly the unions, and the management at the NSSF, and also the Ministry of Gender and the Ministry of Finance, in which the compromise was then arrived at. So we started from what the Parliament had suggested. Parliament had suggested under 3 clauses that the first clause was to allow members who had served for 10 years or those members who had served for, who had reached the age, who had attained the age of 45. So that was the first category. This would have included people who, such as yourself, I'm not too sure how old you are, but because you've served for 10 years and not yet got to the age of 45, so a guy who's joined the fund when they are, say, 20 or 21, 22, let's say, and they are 32, they could have qualified for that. But of course, those who are 45 and above would also have qualified. That number, when we looked at it, was quite a big number. And I will just pause for that before I talk about the numbers involved. The second category was that if you had attained the age of 45 and you were out of employment for at least 3 years, then you could get 40% of your savings. And then the third category was if you were disabled and you were out of employment for 1 year, then you could get 75% of your savings. So if you put those 3 categories together, as I've illustrated, that figure would have come to about 6 trillion shillings. And if you recall, our fund is about 15 trillion shillings. That is a significant part. Significant part of the fund. The other point, of course, to note is that every year we collect about 1.3, 1.4, it's growing, 1.5 trillion this year. And we are paying out 700, so we're paying out 900 this year. So our net collections will be around 700, 800 maybe, if we're lucky and push it. And suddenly, if you wanted 6 trillion shillings out of the fund, you basically are saying you can't pay out of your collections. You would have to pay out of your investment income whatever you can get out of there. But most importantly, you would now begin touching on your principal, the amount of money we've invested in principal, which would then lead to us ending up selling in a market where we are the main players, and you've heard about demand and supply. If there's a lot of supply and very little demand, it leads to prices going up, and the prices is interest rates, and if interest rates go up, the price of bonds comes down, and therefore we lose money. So the challenge would have been that, of course, would have wanted more people to benefit from the 20%, but how do you then control the impact on the fund, given the fact that it would have covered a lot more people? Which is why then the compromise was reached that let us only look at the category of people who've saved for 10 years at least and have attained the age of 45. That number comes down to about a liability of about 1 trillion shillings, but it also includes about 400 billion shillings or 500 billion shillings of members who've already attained the age of 50 or 55 and are already due to get their money if they wanted to. So we believe that maybe those people might not get their money because the reason they've left it there is maybe they're getting a good return. In fact, they're getting a good return. So if you look at the people who have reached the age of 45 and have saved for at least 10 years, that number is around 500 billion. And we believe that 500 billion is something we can pay out within a reasonably short of time. And what we've assured the public, and what we assured the president, and what we assure the members of parliament is that we will come up with a payment plan so that it does not disrupt the activities of the fund. So it really is around how much the fund could afford in a very difficult environment, and we know that the environment has largely been affected because of COVID.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. Speaking of, let me come to our CFO, Mr. Mwanje. Richard just alluded to the fact that the members' contributions have been growing. In fact, last year, the contributions grew yet again in an environment where companies were struggling very, very, very much with COVID-19. What magic bullet did the fund use? How were you able to pull such a miracle off last year?
Thank you, Ben. It's very interesting about the Ugandan business community. It's about resilience. Yes, of course, we have sectors which were really deeply affected. The schools, the transport sector, the entertainment sector were really deeply affected. But when you think about it, they went back and reinvented themselves. Most of the big schools actually started online schooling. They re-engaged their teachers. The people who are doing tourism started vigorously supporting and promoting local tourism. And the people who are doing transport reinvented themselves. I know of a particular case of a person I know who had these vans which are supposed to be hired for, say, tour businesses. Started doing home collections of people going to work and taking them back. And he certainly said he's making much more money, and he kept his employees engaged. And of course, we still have the corporate companies. They kept, like NSSF, every one of us remained engaged, and of course, NSSF continued paying NSSF contributions. That's it, basically. You can put it down to the resilience and innovativeness of Ugandans.
Speaking of that resilience, let me come to our head of business, Mr. Sajabi Geoffrey. Someone is asking here that if I begin my business today, that is still unregistered, do I have to pay for the workers then? If not, how do I go about doing that? If my business maybe is still a bit informal and hasn't gone through the proper registration process?
Thank you, Ben. So for as long as you're in business, you're employing people, under the current law, for as long as you're employing 5 people, regardless of whether you're officially registered or not, NSSF will come knocking. Because when it comes to savings, they are good for everyone. So whether your workers are formally employed or not, whether the company under which they are working has gone through the process of registration or not, saving is something that is good for everyone. So for as long as that company, for as long as that business has gotten to a point where you've got 5 employees, it is expected that you've got to register for the purpose of contributing for the 5 people. However, if the company is employing less than 5 people, then the choice is upon the employer. You can choose not to, but when you interact with NSSF, we'll always encourage that even when you don't have 5 employees, it is extremely important that even the fewer employees that you've got can get this benefit. So our encouragement would still be that even if you don't yet have the threshold of 5, it is good that you register immediately, you're in operation, even if you're employing 1 person, so you can start to contribute for that 1 person, and then the fund can grow with you as a company.
Thank you very much. And can I quickly point out that I'm in love with your voice. When you're done with NSSF, please come join us in radio. I'm so jealous. I had to say that. He just sounded simply amazing. Let me come to Mr. Milton, who's the head of human resource. So, Milton, we have a problem. When Richard was doing his presentation, he pointed out that the staff satisfaction is above 90%, almost 94%. The customer satisfaction is good, but not as good as the staff. So how come the people at NSSF are happier than the members are? Shouldn't it be your job to make it sure it's the other way around? At least we should be happy before you guys are happy.
All right, thank you for the question. But let me remind you of one quick one. When Richard was speaking, it was very clear that the foundation of NSSF strategy sits on people. We've got to do the right things with our people. That's the only way that our people can then do the right things with the processes that we operate so that we are able to pay our members within 1 day. And if members are paid within 1 day and all those technology things we do, then their satisfaction as well goes up, and then they can give us more money to get to the 20 trillion. That's how our strategy works in very simple terms. So it's important that we get the right things happening with our employees. It's the only way that we can get our members in the right space. If you saw the graph that Richard shared here, only 3 years ago, our member satisfaction was in the mid-70s. I think the figure was 76. And in 3 short years, we've been able to move 10 percentage points. So there are things which are happening there which are right. But as I said, the important thing for us is to make sure that we are in the right space with our employees. We are meeting them at their point of need. And then employees are the people who are going to help us drive the strategy of getting the customers where they want to be. And I think we have credibility for it. As I said, we are demonstrating that the graph on our customer satisfaction is headed in the right space.
I think, Ben, if you allow me, I would like Milton to just talk about some of the things we're doing for our people. I know I talked about 3 or 4 things, but I know that, for example, one of the things we're doing, we're hiring some of the best people in the market. When I joined NSSF, nobody wanted to come and work for NSSF. Today, we're hiring from the banks, we're hiring from the international companies, we're hiring from abroad. We recently hired somebody who was working for Google. We are getting in good talent, and everybody wants to come and join us. So if you could just talk about some of the things we're doing to actually make our people really look good.
Thank you, of course. Please, of course, just a reminder to my panelists, look that you speak as close to the microphone as possible so we can hear you properly. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Richard. I think the most recent experience I can refer to is the challenge we had with COVID. And when I meet my colleagues in the HR community, one of the things that come up, and NSSF comes out very positively, is how we handled the situation in a way that maintained the level of motivation and engagement and productivity of our staff. When this COVID situation came, the most obvious thing that everyone else was thinking about was providing the technology for staff to be able to work from home. So give data, give internet, give laptops, give the MiFis and all that. Yes, we did that, but we realized that what our staff need, this technology thing is just like the basic need. The real thing that makes a difference is the humanness with which we handle the situation. When COVID happened, I know all of us were impacted in different ways. Some people got ill, some people had relatives getting ill, people passed on and all that. So the level of uncertainty was unprecedented. So the first thing we did with the previous board was to say we must give our staff certainty. Let us take the strategic decision that as NSSF, we are going to ensure job security for our employees. We are going to ensure that nobody gets their salary reduced. We are going to make sure that we maintain that level of certainty for our employees. The second thing we knew we had to do with our staff was providing that emotional and physical wellness. You know, when people work from home, there's this energy that we draw from one another when you are in the office, but then all of a sudden everyone was in their part of the world where they work, and there was a sense of loneliness, there was a sense of being on your own, and there was a sense of loss. So as an institution, we knew we had to play in that space, and that's where we had lots of informal engagements. Each of my colleagues, heads of department, were having regular conversations with their people, calls, not to talk business necessarily, just how are you coping? How is it at your space? How can we be of help for you? We encouraged people we engaged counselors because people had personal challenges that they wanted to deal with. So not only were the counselors engaging with our staff and their families, we expanded it to include their wider family as well. Because maybe when your uncle or mother is going through a particularly difficult situation, there is a way it directly impacts you. So we opened it up, and the number of our staff that benefited from that is phenomenal. And then the last one is maintaining that sense of connectedness. As I said earlier on, there is a way that people draw energy from one another. If you're working remotely, you lose out on that. So we did all those things, and I think from the PAL survey that we do with our staff, it went down very, very well. And I guess I must say that MD himself and Patrick, we made it a point to organize sessions where the MD addresses staff from wherever they are, and people ask all sorts of questions. Most of the questions business, but a lot of the questions about their own personal challenges, you know. So the list is long. I know that we are time constrained, but I think the summary of it all is staff are very alert or are very awake to how you meet them at their point of personal emotional need.
Yeah.
Staff are very alive to how to the balance between what you extract from them versus what you put in. If you get that balance right, like I think we are struggling to do at the fund, I think that it does a great thing for the employer brand, which is why we are able to attract the kind of talent that Richard was mentioning.
Thank you very much, Milton. I'll give you two very quick examples. One is the fact that on a very personal level, my big brother would have been dead by now if he was not working with the NSSF. I think Richard and Milton know the story very well. And I keep telling everyone who cares to listen that if anyone ever says anything bad about NSSF or its management, I will hunt them down and break their legs personally. Because of what we as a family went through a few years ago, my brother had some very serious problems. And the entire management at NSSF at some point actually came and spent an entire evening with us in the hospital. I'll never forget that. And please forgive me if I begin to get emotional about this on national TV, but it just went to show why that staff satisfaction is as high as it is. And preparing for this event, I've had the privilege of interacting with a lot of the NSSF staff. And I've had one thing from all of them. I will never work anywhere else apart from NSSF. And they're saying when I leave this place, I'm either going to do my own things or retiring. So I guess to you, Milton, and to Richard and the team, kudos. You've obviously done an amazing job, and you can pat yourselves on the back in a very big way. There's a lot of witnesses that attest to this. As we wrap up, Richard, quick question for you. 2015, you laid out a 10-year strategic plan. And some eagle-eyed people on Twitter picked this up and said, yeah, look, you've given us a good interest rate this year. But how does it compare to where you had promised that you would be back in 2015?
Actually, I would love everybody to look at the trajectory we estimated at the time. We are bang on there. In fact, I believe that if it weren't for COVID, we would be very close to the 20 trillion mark, which we set out to do within 10 years. I certainly think that under assets under management, which is one of our big mark to show how successful we've been, we'll definitely hit that target. If you look at the return we promised our members, we have consistently performed beyond the benchmark. Our benchmark is the 10-year average inflation, as I mentioned. We've consistently done that. And if you plot the graph, actually that, removing some of the inconsistencies, especially during 2018 when we had a huge currency problem and also an equity problem, you'll find that the interest rate has consistently gone up. So you've got this curve, which on the one hand, on average inflation or the benchmark rate is sort of coming down because inflation has been coming down, but the return that we've been giving to our members has actually been going up. So you got a widening like structure. Obviously, the challenge becomes bigger because I don't know if you caught the drift. This year, we will be paying out 1.3 trillion shillings out of that percentage that we've paid. Next year, the balance changes. We'll have to be looking at 15 trillion shillings, and only 1% of that is 1.5 trillion shillings. So, 150 billion shillings. So you can see that every single time the fund grows, the amount of interest we need to pay becomes bigger, but that means that we need to somehow make sure that our assets continue to earn. Yeah. If you look at all the other, benchmarks that we put in place on operations, on processes, on people, I think we've done very well with regard to our strategic plan.
I've got to say, Richard, I just love how you throw around words like billions and trillions as if you're buying a Rolex. It's very encouraging to know that you're only thinking about numbers that big. Speaking of numbers, big and small, Mr. Mwanje, yes. To the average person, it might seem like a very small number, but being able to reduce your costs from 1.2% to just over 1% actually represents quite a significant saving for the members, doesn't it? How have you been able to achieve that? If you can tell us very quickly as we wrap up. And also, are you planning to actually find a way of taking it below a percentage point at any point in the future?
Yes, Ben, thank you very much for that question, very pertinent. The first thing I need to state is that, as Richard, if you saw Richard's presentation, by 2025, our target is to have that number below 1%, and our projection will be probably around 0.87%. That's the pre-COVID projection. Right now, it's about 0.97%. Number two, if you look at the funds, our size around the world and the region, their number is around between 2 and 3%. So we are very, very ambitious. But how do we get there? It's the culture. We've inculcated two things in our culture. Number one, value for money. Even as we speak about all these projects, innovation, whatever, everything is tested for value for money to make sure that gives us the value for the business. We do not spend for the sake of it. We never do. And between the heads of department and CEO, Richard, NSSF is a very mean organization. You can never get a shilling out of NSSF that you've not earned. Secondly, if you look at the heads of department, they are all responsible for their budgets. And even if it's 100,000 shillings spent, 50,000 shillings spent, all of them have been trained. All of us have trained. No one signs off on something that is not aligned to the strategy and that's not giving us value. Yeah. And with that, I can assure you we're on the right trajectory. We'll get there.
Yeah, right trajectory for you, Mr. Mwanje. For those of us who do work for the NSSF, that's very depressing because getting any money out of you is a big challenge. But yeah, thank you for saving members money and keeping it away from us. One very last short one for our head of business. Mr. Sevi, the question around how quickly it takes to process members' benefits. I know that for a very long time this was almost like a painful process. But from what we hear these days, that seemed to have changed a lot for the better. If you could, in just a few seconds, point out how smooth that process has now become as we wrap up.
Thank you, Ben. And let me try to give it a bit of the context. So about 10 years ago, we'll take an average of 90 days from the time when you make your application to when we actually pay you, to the extent that some people would forget that they made an application and they waited for the surprise. Now, because of the deliberate effort undertaken by the fund over the years, because we've been able to improve efficiencies, because we've largely automated many of the processes, today we're taking an average of about 9 days okay? 9 days is the average. Of course, there are claims that are paid even in a shorter time, especially the age benefit, because it does not require verification from any third parties. We also have a few claims that still take a little longer, and they explain why the average is still 9 days, especially the survivor's benefit. For the reason that many times family members, some of the dependents, take much longer to reach agreement on who should actually be paid. That's why we keep emphasizing to members that we've made it extremely convenient for you to update your information with the fund. So today, if you got your new spouse, update. Today, if you got a child, update. That makes it convenient and much easier for the fund to be able to verify this information. But also on the part of the fund, we've deliberately integrated with many of the third-party agencies to aid verification. I'll tell you that we are integrated with NIRA, so if someone passes on and is supposed to get a certificate to confirm that from NIRA, we can verify. We've integrated with the Ministry of Public Service, so when you come and say, I'm now working for public service, if you're forging it, we're able to electronically verify with them. We've integrated with medical doctors to make it also easy and possible to be able to get a report on a member that they examined.
Right.
So there are so many things that we are doing to be able to achieve our target of 24 hours of 1 day by 2025. But I can tell you that coming from the highs of 90 days then to the 9 days that we are doing currently, it's been a significant improvement, and we can only get better. So 2025, we are still on that number. 24 hours, place your claim today. Tomorrow, money should hit your account. So we're doing quite some good stuff there. Thank you.
You obviously are. Speaking of money hitting your account, oh, by the way, Mr. Sajabi, someone was saying here on Twitter that they hadn't paid attention to your voice until I pointed it out. Now they're asking me for your number. I've told them you're a married man and to stick away and stay away from you.
Well, if it's a woman, you can give them.
Let's wrap up with a final thought from Richard, including an answer to the important question, as Geoffrey has just mentioned. When do the members receive that text message? You've given us 12.15%. When is that SMS going to come through saying, hey, your account has been credited with a lot of money?
Well, I hope that the first recipients of that text is currently happening. I'm very confident that if you are one of the first members, you will have. I haven't received mine, but I'm very sure that by the end of today, I will have received that, because I know that as soon as the minister announced, the button was switched on, and the technology is now doing its bit. So we are updating members' accounts much of today, and perhaps by the weekend we shall have finished. So what would I like to say at the very end? Well, thank you so much, first of all, to my colleagues who have joined me on the panel today. As you've seen, we've been very inclusive. I know that a lot of people all the time hear from me, and they think maybe I might be making up this stuff, but today I think we've demonstrated that we are all singing from the same hymn sheet, and I would like to thank my colleagues for doing that and not letting us down. I would like to thank the board who have just joined us, and those who have who've been around for a while for continuing to support us. It's not so easy to operate if you do not have a board that is supportive, so I'd like to thank both the old board that was responsible for these financial statements and the new board that have taken over. I would like to thank the staff. No particular order, by the way, of thanking, because I'm sort of all over the place today. I would like to thank the staff who have done a great work. We've got some of the smartest kids in this town. Some of our data analysts are really, really smart. I mean, even I get intimidated. They're really, really smart. And we're hiring more. So if you've got brains and you know what to do, please come and join a winning team. I would like to thank our members for giving us the business, trusting us with their money, and continuing to do a lot of things to make sure that the members' balances are continuous. I mean, the money is paid into the fund, especially the employers, because we know that it's been a difficult time. So thank you so much for having the trust and continuing to send the money in there, even during the bad times that hopefully we'll not see soon. I would like to thank government, of course. We operate because there's a law, and we operate because they've put there the guarantee that once we do not perform, they will at least pay you the 2.5%, We don't need to do that, fortunately. We're making the money for the members, and thank you so much. But we thank you for the support. Of course, the Ministry of Finance, specifically the Ministry of Gender, who have representatives on our board. I'd like to thank the suppliers today. Somebody has sent me a text just now, a couple of texts actually, that were really looking good on TV.
Yeah.
So guys, well done for making us look good on TV and wherever else you are watching us from. And we promise you that we'll continue to do the good things.
Thank you.
Have I forgotten anybody?
Yes.
Oh, yes, the Auditor General.
The most punctual man in the whole country.
And PwC for making sure that you confirm to the public that the numbers are not suspect. But thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you so much, Richard. I guess I'll just pick up from there to thank our members for joining us on all the different TV stations. You're watching us on UBC, NBS, NTV, BPS. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. I'd like to encourage you, when you do get that text message, you can black out the amount and then just take a screenshot and post it on Twitter and tag at NSSFUG. The hashtag is AMM2021, just so that people can know that Kamani has actually hit your account. It would be good to know. Also, continue the discussion. We have a poll that's running on our social media platforms, so please do pick up on that. I also want to end by thanking the NSSF team that has helped put this together. It's been an amazing production. A big thank you to the Fenon Events team who have made us look really, really good. I got a text from my wife saying that that I should hurry home. So obviously Fenon has made us look very, very good. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the entire NSSF team and our production crew, my name is Ben Mwine. I want to thank you for joining us for the 9th annual members meeting. We'll see you next year. Stay in touch with us on social media at NSSFUG if you want to get in touch. Any questions you have, the most responsive company in Uganda on social media. So you go ahead and get in touch. We'll be more than glad to interact with you. Have yourselves a great day. God bless you and enjoy your interest. God bless Uganda. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a wrap. And congratulations to Richard and the team. It's been a wonderful annual members meeting. To Barbara and your team, can I kindly ask that we give a big hand clap to Barbara Arimi, to Victor Karamaji, to Edrina, to Tito, to Sharon. These are the amazing guys that have been working behind the scenes to make sure that you had a wonderful annual members meeting again. So thank you so much. And we declare the AMM 21 officially closed. Have yourselves a lovely day and God bless you.